over 5,000 meters of altitude gain. And we're underway. Destination Pt1.
So I'm starting it right from the start of the stage. I think they fast forward. This is the stage route, right? And it starts down here, comes up here, and we joined it here. So this is our ride, and that junction's there. So we go along here and we go up this climb. I haven't looked up what it is yet, but that is here, La Trouba, right? So we rode all of this bit up the Trouba, up here, and then we turned right and went up the Caracol, which is exactly what this route does. Well, that is the route. So we went up here, that's the Trouba, we went up here, we chuck a right, and we went up the Caracol here. But also, they're going around off the Caracol, they're going right. Oh, don't be a dick. They're going right, down here, back on our route, and they're going back up the opposite way up this Porto de la Silla, and we came down here. So you can see that. We came down here, we joined about here, and we went up that climb. So you'll see later in the stage they go down where we went up. That's where that monument was and the little stone hut on the corner. So basically they are coming up here, going round here and a circuit round, and then back up here and then off to Pico Blanco. So basically we covered, the stage today covers loads. I'm going to try and look from here basically to here they rode. So that's our ride. Anyway, I'm going to record it.
Spike almost. It really does loom large over today. 172 kilometers with over 5,000 meters of altitude gain. And at least right now, the peloton almost as wide as it is long. What goes up must come down, and we've got a pretty technical descent after our first.
So this is at the start, we didn't go along here.
We won't be atop that.
But in a minute it cuts, this is like the Eurosport coverage, they don't cover the first 20k.
Pass by the foot of what we're dealing with today, and this needs bravery, and this is the first move for a formula to get Mikkel Landa a stage win in a race where he had very high hopes, and I think this is part of indeed the battle plan as Kasper Asgreen sets off Robbie to try and, well, instigate our first break. Only two, that won't do.
No, it won't. A little bit underwhelming with the build-up. So this is a stage for a break. There's going to be everybody going up the road. Keep it going. Kasper Asgreen goes, gets one follower. It's not enough to make a successful Instagram career out of, one follower. But that's what Kasper Asgreen has got at the moment in terms of a breakaway companion. But might be a slow start to what could prove to be a bomber of a stage, because there should be plenty more riders willing and able to get up the road. But at the moment, it's like there's an invisible force field at the front of the peloton. Nobody's going.
Well, I'm hoping it's not a bomber. I hope it's plenty of fighters. Let's wait and see. For now, Sean, it's a bit of a stare down, and almost nobody dare grasp it just yet.
I think they're all tired.
Well, we should never tire of such comments, Sean. The bald facts of it.
This is not the normal start you would be expecting, because there's a lot of riders here, in this first, 15 or plus kilometres before we get on to the start of the first time of the day. Try and get into the breakaway and get a nice advantage, but not the case here. And when you get over that at that first climb, after the 32 kilometres, well then we have a lot of downhill, uphill all the time, and it's a surprise that there's not more takers here to try and get into the breakaway and see will they be allowed to get many minutes as we go into the stage, and then decide what you can do.
Line 2 is this join Asgreen up towards the front. I imagine that he will be working hard for Max Paul a little bit later on. That'd be great to see. Max speaking at the top of today, and he looked really fresh, I must say. Another wee technical here for Maurice Balestet, just getting himself sorted out. Meanwhile, looking forlornly back. Like, come on, Robbie.
If you look at the profile and put yourself in the position of these riders that have fought their way through in this welter to survive this long on what has been just a ridiculously brutal tour. You could forgive them for looking at the profile saying, all right, don't spend too much too early. This is already hard enough without going full gas out from kilometre zero. And I think that's what it is. When a stage with, 4,700 plus metres of elevation gain, at 47 kilometres of classified climbing, you could look at it and say, okay, easy to blow up on a day like this. Bit sheepish to get started, but still, I'm really, really surprised.
5,077 actually. There's been some disengagement between the various readings of the altitude. A lot of it's been taken just on the climbs itself, but if you factor in some of the lumpy stuff which we're on right now, it does exceed 5,000 metres just today. So yeah, some are in the late 4,000s, but the maximum today with the full count is 5,077. And looking back down this line, that's exactly what Robbie was saying. People are thinking, well, I need to at least hold back 77 and give myself 4,999. Well, let's see indeed if indeed that turns out to be the case. A couple of little spits and spots here on the lens. Don't worry too much about it. We may have some rain later on. I'm hoping it's not off our first categorised climb, because that's the most technical of our descents that we're going to be dealing with, will be then. But this is quite a drag, Sean. Lots of riders out of the saddle for a good reason.
Well, it's a bit of a drag race trying to get with the peloton here, and it just shows that I think fatigue is a problem here for a lot of the riders, and yeah, nobody wanted to commit too much. And you can see here the way it kicks up, and you look at the profile, and it doesn't look that difficult at the start, but they are, serious kickers, and slowly the guys are trying to just creep away off the front of the peloton. You can see more riders wanting to come across.
And others not at all. What's going on? This looks like this looks more like a sickie than anything else, Robbie.
Yeah, unless he's just dropping very relaxed back to the car, but you wouldn't think this would be the point in the race to go and do that.
Yeah,
so early after the start. And Patrick Camper, who did a lot of the riding on the front yesterday to control everything with Nico Dents from the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe team, yeah, he looks fairly unwell and not looking back to the car. It just looked like he was going backwards. Hopefully for him it's just a bad moment early on until things stop being so seized up and he can work himself back into it. But yeah, a curious one to see someone go back that quickly so early.
Most definitely, Sean, but you know what it's like to suffer at the latter part of this race.
Yes, and we see Gamper yesterday, he finished, last man in the stage, himself and Nico Dents, but you'd not take too much from that, because the riding they did all through the day, when they had their job done, they got to the final climb. If they were in a gruppetto, meaning, a number of riders, maybe 10, 15, 20 riders, they could have knocked it off and just climbed up. So I wasn't taking anything from that, but looking at him there, doesn't look great. He's going out looks like going out the rear of the peloton. We'll just have to wait and see for the moment. But yeah, this is not a nice one at all after the performance they'd done yesterday, and they really put Roglic in a great position onto the final climb, and we see that magnificent teamwork.
This is looking a little bit more spirited. I think it's because of the percentages we were dealing with. They were 8 and 9%, and that's a real wearer to come straight out of the back door on stage 20 of a very, very tough race. And there's a few more now that want to take the option, the ticket to ride, Robbie.
Yeah, well, that was possibly it, Carlton, that the riders are very aware of what was coming up very early in the stage, and if you made a really big effort to try and get away unsuccessfully in that first 2 or 3 kilometres, and then knowing you could see yourself go from a contender to be in the break to on for your life in the Vuelta, basically, and then just trying to survive the race. And I really feel for Patrick Camper after all the work he did yesterday, and I've been in that situation enough in my career that I've been dropped in the first kilometre of a tough stage. It's horrible. You wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Still rocking and rolling, Sean. It's going to take a while for this one to be decided, just because of the nature of the terrain. There's a short downhill run to another couple of peaklets that are busy coming, but we're seeing an attrition rate right at the start, Sean. This is a tough beginning for many. Sutherland off the back, and a few others as well. As soon as we start to see some of those that we would normally think in a supporting role on such a day, you'll know how tough this has been, Sean.
Yes, well, we can see how tough it is there, and you know, a lot of riders are really suffering just to stay in contact on the rear of the peloton. And we still have 20 kilometres to get to, you know, the start of the first climb of the day, and that just goes to show, as you mentioned, Carlton, when they talk about the altitude gain in the stage, they seem to measure, I think, a lot of the climbs they do, but they forget about maybe the little small ones in between, and you know, that adds up to quite a lot. And you can see here, this start is a brutal one, and if you're a little bit, you know, the tired legs, a little bit of tiredness from the last number of days, well then you can suffer a lot. And just to get going as well, and we often see the riders on a stage like this one, they just do the warm up on the rollers before the start, just to be ready, because you know, if you have the heavy legs at the start, this is not the terrain you want it.
Well, it's coming together, and it's also falling apart. All things will be true today, I think it's fair to say. Affini just off the back. Just shy of 177, and time to dig in. And we know all about this, Sean.
Jay, come on.
Is it a J day, Robbie?
Yes, it is, and he's going to get ahead of his teammate Soler. Get up the road.
Well, come on. we can only hope so. I mean, Caden Groves has got green stitched up. Ben O'Connor lost red yesterday. I'd like to see Jay Vine just come from the clouds, as it were. Well, okay, from the clouds, 1 point behind Soler, and go over the top in that King of the Mountains competition. Why not? He's riding aggressively, but I'm sure Marc Soler has also something up his sleeve.
Look at that shot. Good Lord himself has parted the clouds for a view. What's going on? I thought it'd be further down the road than this, says the good Lord. Well, let's see. They are strung out. This is that little downhill section I was telling you about, and then another couple of sucker punches, Sean, as we get ourselves towards what will ultimately be the foot of the final climb.
Yes, well, we will go by the foot of the climb, and yeah, a lot of riders will be thinking if they could turn up for the climb at this point, it would be great, because you know, it's going to be 163 kilometres done when they get to the bottom of the climb to, you know, go up there for the final run to the line. A lot of you know, climbing to be done, and there'll be a lot of very tired legs again. They get back to this point again, but yeah, we can see the way it's stretching out there, and you know, on the little kicker there, we could see the way they were struggling to get up, and it's not surprised on the descent then it pulls out a lot, and yeah, we can see here all pretty much together for the moment, but a lot happening in this stage. At the back of the peloton there, there's a lot of riders just fighting to survive here.
Was that Samaro Schmidt again? He's been erstwhile, hasn't he? A breakaway rider. Some splits opening up on that first little peaklet. Today we may have some enormous margins. Take an awful long time for the riders all to get home. Look at the gaps, Robbie. It's indicative of the pace we've got now after a tough start to what is a tough day.
Yeah, many riders already struggling, gone over that first little kicker, and it's not even an official climb. Sharp descent, and then it starts to drag up again, and even the very small climbs, at least they look small on today's profile, are much bigger than you give them credit for.
Yep.
Because they just look so minute in comparison to the rest of the profile. But there are groups back here just scrambling. Until it'll get back to the peloton. You see it breaking up in front of you like this. It's what nightmares are made of. You hope it pulls on and brake slides away, and you can just sort of ride yourself into the stage, because that's what it takes so often on stages like this late in the Grand Tour. It could take an hour or two until your legs come around and start doing what they're told.
Some of these gaps, Sean, are really starting to turn into fissures here. They're regathering themselves, that long string. That's about 4 groups are remustering to the main body of the peloton. But others who are already struggling on the climb are struggling again just to get back in before the next little peak.
Yes, well, we'll see there on the climb the way it was splitting up on the rear, and then we could see riders trying to get out of the front on that previous kicker or, you know, short climb, and gaps in the peloton, which you don't see when you look at it, you know, head on. But when you get the heli shots, then you can see the gaps, and we can see now this group, you know, just fighting to get back in here. And you know, these guys will be saying their prayers, hope we get onto the climb that there'll be a break, get away, and things will settle down. The teams that want to control will block the road, and it will settle down for a long time this stage, because if this goes on and we goes on to the first climb and, you know, it doesn't get away the break of the day, well then this could be a killer of a day. And yeah, time limit is going to be a problem if that is the case, because you see Vlasov here, you know, very much to the rear, where we see him yesterday on that final climb, the way he just opened it up for Primoz Roglic with Danny Martinez, and he's also, you know, at the back there, so that's not, you know, a good sign. It just tells how difficult it is. And we heard from Thomas de Gent as well, will he be going for the breakaway today? He said, I don't think so, because I want to finish it, and you know, this is his 500th stage in a stage race today, so he wants to finish. So he's just, you know, using his experience and not burning any energy at this point if it's not going to be of great importance or great gain.
In the mean, off the front, Tejada, Frigo and Jay Vine, they've gone again there. See Primoz Roglic yesterday, I was struggling early, and I know they're not arm warmers.
Certainly not arm warmers. Been through the mill, quite a few have. In fact, he was at the medical car yesterday, buzzing around it like a hornet and a honeypot. Unfortunately, it wasn't so sweet for him, but he's showing today he's got something very, very special up his sleeveys.
Yes, well, we can see there he has a lot of bandages, and you know, Jay Vine again, he was you know, in a crash there in the earlier part of the stage. I think it was around the 40 kilometres into it, and we can see, you know, he's a lot of bandage here. We did see that yesterday when he went to the team doctor's car. First of all, he was at the right hand side, then he had to go around to the other side to just get bandaged up, and we see, you know, he's carrying a lot of bandages here today, but it's not affecting him. To be able to get into this move here is a good one. And yeah, we all talked about, of course, Marc Soler and himself in the mountain classification. You know, it's very tight at the top there, only 1 point separation, and yeah, I suppose Jay Vine is thinking, if I get into a move earlier on, well then I'm in a position to try and get this mountain classification jersey at the finish tomorrow evening. But will Max Soler sit back and, you know, leave that happen? We'll see as we get on to the first climb of the day.
We will. Gosh, 161.4 kilometres to go. We're just passing the foot of what will be our sort of turn in, albeit from a slightly different direction. In order to take on our final peak today. Before we get there, we haven't had any categorised climbs just yet, but we are on this latest little upkick, just about to get to this open plateau that takes us to what is apparently quite a benign climb, but it's uphill almost all the way to it after this last little descent. Jay Vine flicks out an elbow, and everyone just thinks, oh, he wants the medical car, because he's absolutely swathed in bandages. I think, you know, on a day like today, everyone's possibly going to be calling for their mummy. Well, we've got one with Jay Vine up front. He's so swathed in bandages, the poor man. I'm hoping he makes it all the way, but he's started very strongly here. Hoping Jay Vine makes it all the way into the polka dot jersey competition. He's very close to his teammate. Don't be surprised if Soler bridges over and goes, hello, mate. Let's wait and see. Welcome back, Robbie McEwen. Some splits today, rough start to today, Robbie, and I think is this Soler going over now?
Yes.
Oh my life.
Soler in third wheel of the group coming across to his teammate Jay Vine. At least he's not on the front of the group, but he's actually just backing off, looking for a bit of assistance from behind. So I guess it could be worse if your teammate comes across to you and he's the one driving it. That's what you don't want.
Is that Castrillo again? It looks like his wayward style, which is, you know, he can ride however he wants if he keeps winning stages. Here he is, rock and roll, Sean. There's something distinctive about him. Looking back to see who else is coming along for the fun of it today. Soler goes by, Jay Vine flicked out the elbow, and I don't think any words have passed between them just for the time being, but this is a fighting force, at least for the time being, for polka dot jersey points. 160 to go, Sean.
Yes, well, this is the battle to make the breakaway, and of course the men who are in that mountain classification standings at the top of the rankings, they are going to try and get into these moves and get the points available right from the very beginning, the first climb of the day. And we have a lot of climbs here. You know, we have second category we have 3. Our second category we have 2, and third category we have 2, and then we have 3 first categories. So there's a huge amount of points up for grabs. I think 46 total mountain classification points to be taken, and we can see the way it's not being left away. Other teams wanted to follow here, but it's proven difficult to get across here because we see that fatigue is with everybody in this race at the moment.
Jack Haig, I believe, has made it here. Berthet is up front. Tejeda, Mark Soler, of course, who you've just seen, he's come over with Tejeda, and Frigo. Castrillo's there, Jay Vine, Carlos Canal. We have Champignon, Monique, and Leinzer, who was part of the early push and indeed has survived. Robbie, it's got busy.
Yeah, he got very busy. Good move by Jack Haig. He was the last man to join this group, but the gap is really small back to the peloton. A really high speed chase and pursuit of this front group. But just look at the bobbing head of Pablo Castrillo, already a 2-time stage winner. Always looks like he's in trouble, always looks like he's about to pop, and that's when you just need to be careful, because he's going to pop off the front. You just won't see him again. But he's really driving this break at the moment, and Jay Vine taking a bit of more of a back seat at the moment, letting his teammate and rival at the same time, Mark Soler, do a little bit more of the work on the front of this break as well. And the gap's starting to open up, and things in the peloton just pausing for a moment, and this could be enough for that, just that elastic to break enough, and then one more goes. And is that a DSM rider going who's already got someone in the break? Let's see the colours.
Yep. Certainly looks that way.
Like
Hard to see, slightly beached out from this distance, but yeah, we'll see who it is. I really would love to see them take a big bite out today, and maybe the man who'll be munching is Max Paul. Let's wait and see. Stage 20, 172 kilometres, and we have got now into the full meat of the day. We're approaching 20 k's into this one, and finally a breakaway. Looks like it's sorted itself out. There's an attempt at a blockage while some of you have been away, but the barrier has been breached, and this looks like a fighting force of what, another 10 going up the road. They can't indeed help themselves, and indeed Robbie McEwen, very difficult to get a lockdown at a moment like this at the front of the pack.
It's starting to get very chewy, Carlton, this stage, because we're coming towards the foot of the first categorised climb of the day. Category 3, 9 kilometres at 3%. So I won't say they'll barely notice it, because it's still going to be a nasty drag, but it's sort of the easiest of all of the climbs of the day. But it's starting to be a little bit of looking around in this group, and there's one man who's very... It's Castrillo, flick of the elbow. Then it's the 2 riders from UAE in covered in bandages, and Soler covered in polka dot. That's how you tell those 2 apart. The rest are sort of looking for a little bit more of a free ride, and although Lancer from DSM is up here, that attacking rider in the middle, Carlton, I think you nailed it there, that it might have been Max Poole who was trying to come across and join, but not appearing in the background at the moment.
Gosh, Sean, this is such a dramatic start to today. It was a slow burner, and then all of a sudden we got a full display.
Yes, well, we have a good group here, and they're working pretty well together, but we can see on the front of the peloton it was Jaco Alulua pushing on there, and there's going to be teams, who are really going to get the call from their director sportive. You have to try and bridge across here, because this is a danger one, and we can see the action is still on the front of the peloton. And I think, yeah, riders in the Jaco team like Eddie Dunbar, when you look at the GC standing, I think he's in a good position, because he's a long way down, and he could make the move, try and get in. He's at 13.5 minutes down, and we'll see the way he's riding in the last number of days. He's in good shape, and there's other riders around that position as well who want to be in the breakaway, and if they haven't got a man in, they have to try and rectify the situation quickly here. But it is going to be a difficult one, because we see the power is up here in this leading group.
Well, our first categorised climb is still some distance away. We've got 20 k's to go before we get there. It's punishing terrain far more than the map even suggested. And when you start to look at all the altitude that they're picking up along the way, when you haven't even pondered the climbs just yet, well, your man from DSM is just about to make it in. Indeed, is that a drop back? Waiting to see. They've got a battle plan. It is a drop back just for now. From out front, that's Leinzer just easing up a little bit just to help whoever is their main man to bridge. One can only assume it is Max Poole, but let's wait and see. 155 to go. It bleeds off the front of the Viper here, the tongue just popping out. And indeed, riders still trying to go for it. It's now potentially or never, Robbie.
Yeah, it does seem to be that moment, the now or never. And Max Poole, although his teammate was waiting, it seemed Poole was closer to being caught by the peloton than he was to getting to his own teammate. And should that teammate sit up and wait at the moment for Poole, well, there he is. Then it'll see them both caught and have nobody in the break from that team. And it was a questionable moment to have Lancer sit up and try and wait for Poole at that moment. Everything was just a little bit too close, and I think that's Poole just now being grabbed by the collar by the peloton.
I think so. When we finally do get to this peak, and it's going to take us a long time to reach, considering the amount of climbing that we've already done, Sean, but it's a very technical descent, so if you're close and a good descender, you might be able to make it on what is a reasonably long descent off the back of this longish climb we've got now.
Yes, well, it is a possibility, but it depends on the peloton. If they close it out on the climb and they're allowed to do that, then this gap could grow to be quite a big one. And if it grows out to 2 minutes or 3 minutes, then to go on the descent, it will be a long way across, and they get formed out front, and you're into this very difficult terrain after getting off the first descent of the day. If you want to be in the breakaway with riders, and if you have that riders capable of doing it, this is the time to do it on the climb itself, I think. And it looks like we could see some action. We have to see some action because there's quite a few teams here, I feel, that are not going to be happy with this situation.
Question of work rates. It's a decent balance by the look of it, Robbie, within this, but you don't know who's going to play the I'm working for somebody else card.
Well, it's a decent balance, but now that DSM have taken themselves out of the break, you'd think they'd want to get someone back up in there, but the question then is, do they have the firepower within the team to form a chase, launch somebody else? Max Poole already had a go and didn't sort of even make it halfway across, and it hasn't worked out, that tactical decision they just made to let Lancer wait for him. So we'll see what they go ahead and do. Now they've made a bit of a meal of that one, to be honest.
They did.
Again, I won't sit on the fence with that one. They did muck that one up. You don't drop a guy out at that point. It was just, that was a very low percentage play, to put it mildly. So now they're not there, but there's still plenty of others who are trying to get themselves off the front of the peloton and across into the break.
Good work by Movistar implanting Canal up front. We'll see how he goes. Champion's up there for Cofidis, I'm assuming, for Jon Izagirre. And with so much descending today, Izagirre has been extraordinarily sprightly over the last couple of days, may well have some options. Jay Vine, of course, is up there, so pleased for him. Castrillo will be on a help himself mode, despite the fact that he looks like he's suffering right from the very beginning. He looks like that when he's walking down for breakfast, I bet. So everyone's learning about Castrillo, learning about how dangerous he is. 2-stage wins going his way. Shake his hand, count your fingers afterwards. He could have you. Meanwhile, the ambition's just being displayed at the front here. Narvaez just wanting to be part of a drive that could get up the road, and this is a reassembly, and quite frankly, not overly delighted. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe are kicking on just a little bit. Is this because of the mass man up the road? You reckon they want somebody themselves, Sean? Or are they going to just attempt to neutralise everyone around them at the moment?
Well, it is a funny one to see that Danny Martinez pushing on there, but again DSM trying to launch out of the front of the peloton. Maybe Red Bull will just, make that strong pace for a while and take it back very gradually, but it's a difficult one, 33 seconds. And as I said, when you get onto the climb, there are going to be more teams wanting to come across. And, when you look at up in the breakaway, Jack Haig is the best one, I think, around 42 plus minutes. He's the dirty boy also today, I think. And, yeah, it's not going to be one maybe that will be allowed to get away. Again, you look at the breakaway you're in, you say, yeah, we have power up here. This should be the one to, go and be the break of the day, and then see what the eventual will be. But 34 seconds, it's proving difficult to pull out the gap they would like to have at this moment.
Well, happy birthday to Jack Haig. He was in very happy mood this morning. He said, I've got 135 friends I'm riding with today. I thought, I bet if he had to send out invitations to a proper party, there'd be a few off the list there. But anyway, it was a nice sentiment, Robbie.
Yeah, nice sentiment, but it's just a pity his birthday was yesterday, so too late for gifts.
Oh, well. Yeah, I was going to say.
Close.
35 seconds, it's not much at all, Sean. It's been a pacey beginning, despite the climbs.
Well, Robbie, do you not celebrate birthday for a couple of days down in Oz?
I know Sean Kelly does. He's got multiple birthdays. I've been to one of them.
It's like royalty, isn't it?
Yes, and here we are. DSM are taking up the race here in front, and this is going to be an interesting one now. Who is going to be able to bridge this gap? Because 38 seconds, unless they get help from some of the other teams, will they be able to do it? And as you said, Robbie, taking the man back was up there. It was a little bit of a too nearly one, but they probably thought the man there no chance at all against the company he was winning.
Sean, skillfully avoiding the party discussion there. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that. You know, I went to his birthday, his 60th one day, and his 59th the next day.
He's a time machine, as you well know.
He's ageless.
Exactly that. So, let's see. For the moment, DSM, but obviously there's been head in hands, I think, with the director sportif who said, what? Yeah, well, if they're now on a punishment ride, it's a hiding potentially to nothing. Here's the surf just towards the back. Thomas de Gent as well, who's on his last open road day on a grand tour. Goodness me, Robbie, what a rider.
Yeah, unbelievable rider over his career, Thomas de Gent. I mean, he just doesn't seem to have it in the legs during this welter. And we saw his interview pre-stage, said, listen, I'm just looking forward to getting it over with. And retirement sounds like a really good idea right at the moment. You've got to hand it to him. The rest of his career, the breaks he's been in, the palmarès that he's built up over the years with just absolutely epic victories, mostly from great distances before the finish. He's just been so good to watch, and he's the type of rider that you really miss, and you think of some of the favourite races and victories you've seen as a spectator, and Thomas de Gent comes amongst them. I remember, for one, the stage into Saint-Etienne in the Tour a few years back, chased by Alaphilippe and Thibaut Pinot, and he hung on to win after all day out, and plus the one on Ventoux. Incredible.
Amazing. And even in some of the lesser races, he always produces dramatic days. His work in Catalonia, the big old pile down towards Barcelona, you just never tire of watching the man when he's absolutely in his pomp. Just absolutely glorious. Well, it's been a busy start, and we're just going to welcome back our wider cycling fraternity in a short while. We'll be saying a fond farewell to Robbie McEwen, who is now just going to go and have himself a very brief shandy, mostly lemonade, you'll be pleased to know. Welcome back, those of you who've been away, and welcome into the commentary position, Danny Rowe. Danny, what a start. First of all, we thought it was going to misfire, then suddenly the engine caught, and away we go.
Absolutely, and the race organisers have been cruel, haven't they? Putting this on stage 20 after what's already been a brutal welter. It is just savage, a monstrous day for all of the riders.
Well, the way it started as well, I think it scared a few off. Sure, we were dealing with ramps of 8 and 9% straight out the back door. It was too wearing for some to want to take it on, and as a result we had riders all over the shop. There's a gathering behind these up front, but a determination by DSM to force somebody, one of their riders, into the group. Sometimes you get this almost Mexican standoff, don't you, where essentially DSM are saying, let us in or we're going to chase you down. It's now been cut to 28 seconds.
It's not a case of let us in because they're riding on the front of the peloton. They're just, you know, towing everybody along here, and it is looking like it's going to fall apart for them because they're down to one man on the front now. But yeah, we did see Bora there starting to ride on the front a little bit, and if they are interested in riding, for what reason I have no idea, but we see Danny Martinez there pushing on a bit. Was he trying to calm the situation on the front of the peloton? That we will see very quickly now, because we have just seen a kilometre there for the leading group to get on to the start of the climb, and it is only the start of the first climb, sorry. And it is only the start of the first climb, although we've been climbing a lot of, you know, little small climbs before this, and you know, this is really a start that a lot of riders do not want. Of course, the riders out in front, they're hoping that they can really snap the elastic, as we say in cycling, and the peloton will slow down. But for the moment, 38 seconds, it's all to play for. On this climb, we will see who will spring into action. Have anybody got the legs that needs to get across to this very strong breakaway? Have they got it?
It's going to be a lot of wreckage today, Danny.
It is going to be a lot of wreckage. We were chatting about it at the breakaway, as to what is going to happen on today's stage. And one thing was for sure, that the breakaway is going to have to be a strong one, with a strong climbing talent, because it's not just about getting in the breakaway, it's about staying in the breakaway over these 7 categorised climbs. What are the likes of Carapaz going to do? Is Mas going to put it all on the line to move up on the general classification? He's had 3 second places in the Vuelta, and that will then determine what others do further down. So there are going to be fireworks, but it is looking like this breakaway is becoming a little bit more established now. The gap just ever so slightly pulling out.
Well, and Matt has got part 1 of the plan in place, Danny. He's managed to get Carlos Canal up the road.
Yeah, which is absolutely perfect, isn't he, to have a rider in the breakaway. 1, it takes the pressure off, but 2, it's that satellite rider, and that is ever so important, to have riders up the road so that when the GC riders, if the peloton come back into the race, into contention for the stage win, then the teammates can be used as a satellite rider.
Let's see, 8.6 kilometres before we get to the top of this climb. Now, this one is not overly testy. However, some of the ramps that we've already been over to get to it certainly have been. In fact, the one out of the back door, 8 and 9% as we mentioned. Look at this, average for this climb for the next 9.2 kilometres, and it's pretty steady, 3.1. That's almost mean. It's as if they put them through the mill on climbs of which there was no gain whatsoever. And right now, we're seeing yet others. This happens into Koenig just oh no, it's
Soudal.
Yes, T-Rex Soudal just bleached out slightly. It looked a bit more denim-y in the sunshine. Yeah, not quite sure who it might be, but they want somebody up the road to work for Mikkel Landa, who obviously has plans today, needs a stage.
He does need a stage. He had a shocker, didn't he? I think it's fair to say, a couple of days ago, where he lost a considerable amount of time, went from 5th to 10th on GC. We heard from the Team DS, who said the radio communication was down. They didn't send the rider in the breakaway back soon enough. But again, I questioned what was going on with Landa, why he was dropped at the point that he was. I think it was glycogen. If we look at the way he performed yesterday, he had a pretty solid day. So I think that is their big target now, a stage win, because he's out of contention completely in the general classification.
Schmidt moving up to the front of the peloton, likewise Jonas Zagiri, I note, and also Eddie Dunbar not that far off the nose. So if one can bridge, others can, but it's sweated out to 51 seconds, Sean. This task gets more difficult.
Yes, well, 52 seconds, but we have a lot of the climb to go here. We can see the leading part of the race as we see Pedersen coming out of the peloton, but there will be more riders, I feel, because there's a lot of teams here in a situation where they need to get into the breakaway. I'd be very surprised if we do not see more action from the front of the peloton here from those teams, because you know, looking at the riders that are in those teams that haven't got a lot out of this race, and some of the teams have got something out as well. Not in the GC, of course. It could be an opportunity that, you know, the break might be able to get enough an advantage to go into the final, but that is a long way into this race. We have to wait for, you know, a number of hours before we know that. But if you're not in the break and it does work out, well then you're too late, and you have to, you know, play your card if you've got the manpower and the riders in that physical state to do it.
Well, Ben O'Connor's got Clement Berthet up here as well, so if it's a battle for podium positions, two teams have got it absolutely right.
Yeah, they have indeed, and it's going to be interesting to see what Ben O'Connor is going to do today. Adam suggested in the breakaway that he would put it all on the line and go for a stage win rather than protecting that general classification. I had other ideas. I thought with two fourths, both in the Giro and in the Tour de France, I think a podium would mean the world to him. Obviously, he took that stage win on stage 6, didn't he? So I think it will be more of a defensive game for Ben O'Connor. Really measure himself over that last climb and try and do the best execution of a performance as he can to hold on to the top 3.
Well, it's going to be difficult for Ben O'Connor to win a stage because he's going to be in, you know, big company. He's going to be with Mass, he's going to be with Roglic, he's going to be with, you know, the other GC men. So to win a stage, yeah, I'm afraid if Adam selected him, he's going to be on a loser.
He didn't select him, actually.
Oh,
he went for Roglic. No, he's gone for Roglic for the stage.
He changed his mind.
Oh, no, Adam Yates, you're right, Carlton. You are right. Adam Yates, he had 4th pick today. He had Roglic yesterday, so he did move up slightly, but he has gone for Adam Yates. So, sorry, Adam, but it's not looking great.
Yes, described by all as a brave choice.
I think it was a brave choice, although I've got Adam Yates in the overall, so
well,
it's not looking good for me either.
I actually quite fancied Adam Yates today as well, and you know, the way he can pull it out the bag, and especially when he's been struggling, all of a sudden it's like a switch is thrown with Adam Yates. Brilliant. I wouldn't be surprised if indeed he does what he did in the Middle East at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, what is intriguing though to me is this battle between Soler and Jay Vine. I really hope there's been an alliance at the start of the stage, then that they're not going to battle it out at the top of these King of the Mountains points. Oh, because I hope one will be going for the jersey, one will be going for the stage.
All right.
That's my prediction. Nice. Sean, what do you think?
Well, I don't know what the plan is there. I think they will just, you know, play it out at the top of the climb. Who's the best, and then see what the position is. And the stage, of course, is the interest as well. But we can see here in the peloton is not calming down at all. EF Education wanting to push on here, and this is going to be an interesting one. We will see Red Bull again. They started to come to the front of the peloton and, you know, continue setting on a strong pace. We can see Danny Martinez there, I think it is, very much closing this one down. Are they trying to keep it alive, or are they trying to just, you know, block it out here and try and just leave this breakaway, get a bigger advantage and leave it be the breakaway all of the day? We'll have to wait and see now on this climb to see what Red Bull will do as it all comes back together in the peloton.
That was basically EF Education saying, hang on a minute, O'Connor's got a man up the road, Mass's got a man up the road. What we need is a man up the road.
I mean, it worked, didn't it, a couple of days ago when they were on the attack. It was Owain Doull and James Short who were in a perfect position up the road. They said in their own words, they had a tea party at the top of the climb. They waited for Carapaz, he'd made his move, and they absolutely drilled it on the front. They put time into Mikel Landa that day, but also what they did was hurt the legs of the other riders. So Carapaz, I think he is not going to be happy with 4th overall in this Vuelta. He will be one of those riders that will race aggressively today, and you can see that already. The intent from EF is already there.
Absolutely. Well, Adam was saying, oh look, Stanley Edge. No, it's not Stanley Edge, Adam. Probably better food here. Sorry, Castleton. Yeah, amazing stuff in Castleton as well. There you go. So today, as we take this huge vista, and you can see what sort of terrain we're dealing with, it's a constant series of punches. We're not exactly going alpine today, Sean, and you can tell that from this first categorised climb, to be fair. It's not the most testy. However, it's just the intensity, the fact that they just come so frequently. We're either going up or we're going down. You better have your descending head on.
Well, I think when you look at that, you know, this parcours today is a real difficult one, and, you know, maybe not the big long climbs of 20+ kilometres we see in the Alps or in the Giro. or sometimes in this race, but you know, these are really killer energy sapping climbs, and they just come thick and fast all through the day. And the way the race is going as well, it is going to be a real difficult one. And you know, we can see DSM again trying to, you know, relaunch it here at the front of the peloton. Gap just over a minute here, and 4.1 kilometres for the leading part of the race, the breakaway, to the top of this first climb of the day. But yeah, it's continuing on, and this is not going to be a good one. And we can see F Education moving again, so the minute plus advantage, this is not going to be the breakaway of the day if it continues on. And that's what I said a moment ago. We have to wait until we get onto the climb to see what the reactions will be from the other teams that have missed it, and they're still very active.
If, Danny, you're a good descender and you're close to bridging over this peak, there's a dirty, great, long, very technical descent just about to come up. In fact, the most technical that we've got in this particular stage. It's about 18 kilometres in length. So if that's your bag and you can just get a modest distance, you possibly be able to extend that due to the nerves being shredded of those behind you.
Yeah, you could indeed, and it is technical. It becomes technical about halfway through the climb, like you mentioned, Carlton, and descending is going to be one of those really important parts to the race today. Not only physically, but mentally, it's going to be exhausting. You cannot switch off from start to finish. As Sean said, there is no flat road. It's either up or down all day long. So you've got the positioning at the top of the climb to make sure you're in a good position for that descent, but also having your wits about you on the descent as well, because we've seen the likes of Stefan Kung attacking on the descent, and it's where it's not always about the climbs. The attacks don't just happen there, it's also the descents themselves. So yes, it could be a part of the day where riders try and bridge across. So let's see what happens. This first climb tops out 137.8 to go. We've got a couple of points on offer. There's the makeup of the breakaway on your screen, but also that 1 point between teammates Soler and Vine to be looking at as well. And I think that will show us somewhat the intent of UAE, and if they have they made an alliance, or are they going to fight it out on the road?
We'll see if they sprint for the line in a few moments' time. Jay Vine versus Marc Soler. We will find out what sort of alliance, or not, is in place between the pair of them once we get to the top here. Marc Soler leads by 1 point.
It's also Pablo Castrillo as well, though, because he's actually sitting in third in that King of the Mountains competition.
Absolutely.
So he's got 37 points. So there's 11 points separating him and Vine, 12 to Marc Soler, and there's 46 points available over the entirety of the stage. So we've got to look at Pablo Castrillo as well. And for Kern Farmer, I mean, what a race they've had. It's been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't it? And they've said, actually, from the start of the season, when they knew they were riding the Vuelta, that they've put absolutely everything into being in the best shape possible, the best preparation. But if you look at that team, you've got riders in the peloton whose salary alone will be more than the budget of their entire team. So their performance that they've put out has just been second to none. Really, really happy for them. One of the two invited teams in this race.
Yeah, they're being forced to celebrate with a cupcake.
I think they'll have more than that.
That's the budget,
hope
you
so.
know. It's budget, fellas, sorry. I hope it's more than that. They certainly deserve to have something that can take a substantial amount of candles. That was amazing. Well, they lit 3 of them, didn't they, here? With Berardi, 2 for Castrillo. He's in the break again. Looked like he was struggling as soon as he came out of the coach, to be honest. But 1.9 kilometres until we get to the top. Let's see if he makes a fist of it, trying to get some mountains points. He was probably disappointed, to be honest, to see both Jay Vine and indeed Marc Soler as part of the group. And you're thinking, well, wasn't he a bit more aware of that? Well, honestly, the head's all over the place when he's indeed battling on the road. So yeah, I'm not quite sure he knew the composition of it for quite some time, but he's settled into that role right now. To me, Berthe up there is very good news for indeed Ben O'Connor. Canal, of course, fantastically so, but there's a few other satellites up here who will be hoping to offer up something. I think, as per Sean, that Eddie Dunbar might have a shout today, and he's got Sylvain Moniquet up the road. I'm going mad. He hasn't got anybody up the road. I'm squinting here to try and see the team colours. Yes. He doesn't ride for Jayco, of course. But Moniquet's up the road. Who's Moniquet up the road for? Well, possibly himself, to be honest. It's not going to be Campanarts today, is it? Don't think so. It's not his kind of day, Sean.
No, I don't think within the team of Lotto, it's all about get a man into the breakaway and see if he can survive up there, because when you look at the composition of that team, they have lost, some of their better riders, of course. Van Itfeld, we see, was very promising, and Andreas Kroner went out of the race very early, so they are struggling, to win a stage, because they haven't got the men that can win against the companies up against as well. It is going to be a difficult one, but as we heard from Thomas Digant in the early interview, end of a 3-week tour, sometimes you're in a break with climbers and you say they're going to be the stage winners, and it turns out they're not the best, so you just never know. But will this break be the one that will go all the way? 2:14 at the moment is looking a bit better, and we can see Red Bull, they're gathering the front of the peloton there. They are trying to calm things down, and it's working for the moment because the gap is growing out.
Substantially so. They found a minute in very short order. Once the attempts to bridge, Danny, have been reined in.
Yeah, it's looking more ominous now, isn't it, for the breakaway? You could see Red Bull almost spanning across the entirety of the road, so they are trying to control things, and it has meant that the gap has been drawn out just a little bit as we come closer to this first King of the Mountains. Looking to see it's Marc Soler at the head of the breakaway at the moment.
Normally, you'd expect the man who's in the jersey to be supported by his teammate. However, the man in the jersey nabbed it off his teammate yesterday, and he bridged over to make sure that his teammate didn't secure the Mountains jersey on the first peak. Only 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds available at the top of this one. It's a category 3 test. We're still waiting, Sean, to see if they're going to take bits out of each other here.
Yes, it will be interesting to see what will be the plan here for the two men from UAE. They have to watch Castrillo as well, because he has a bit of a kick on him as well. So it will be an interesting one, and we should hope for the seed now in the next moments. Although it will be a shot from behind again, as we always get with our TV cameraman here. But at least if we can see the leading group going over the top, we'll have some idea of the placings.
Sean, surely they haven't said fight it out on the road. Surely there's some alliance made here between the two of them. Let's see.
Well, here we go.
They're going to fight it
They
out.
are. Castrillo's up for it. That's what's making it sparky. But they are fighting it out. Oh, fantastic. Well, there we go. And it's Vine, I think, that just got it on the throw with... So he now moves into the lead of the Mountains jersey.
I told you.
Sean had a sense of it, but I think Castrillo may have spoiled the party there.
I think so.
Anybody's guess from that camera angle.
Yeah, didn't have a great camera angle there on that, did
Well,
we?
the normal angle. We're getting for 3 weeks.
Sean's not happy about it. Putting in a formal complaint. Yes, as you can see, this is a full acceptance now of our break. The front of the pack here speaks volumes, Danny.
Yeah, it does. As I just said before, you can see by the way that they're riding, you've got Red Bull across the entire width of the road here, and you can just tell by the rider's body language it's complete relaxation. As relaxing as it can be on a stage like today, I guess, but the gap has just come out ever so slightly more now, over 3 minutes. So advantage breakaway, I think they're all happy with this, and let's see how far they can pull this one out.
But will it last?
Don't know. Will the alliance last? I mean,
well, I feel that we could see something happening here out of the teams that haven't managed to get in the break, but they wanted to put a man up there. And this 3 minutes 20 is a lot, but you can kick it off at a point, and there's a lot of points to kick it off here today. But yeah, if they allow to go out, that 5-6 minutes, well, then it will be a one where the break, could go all the way, but they need to get a big advantage here. Although the strong men up in the breakaway, they still need to pull out this big time minute-wise.
Well, that'll be fascinating to hear. Fascinating to hear what Roy McEwen has to say about that battle between
Well, Jade
Vine and Soler. Beg your pardon?
Pt1 got it.
Did he?
Yeah, with Castrillo second and Mark Frigo in third. So virtual classification now, Pt1 59 ahead of Marc Soler with 57 and Castrillo 39.
I knew that from the shot because we're getting so much practice seeing the shots from behind with the cameraman. I'm getting very good at it now.
Well done, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. So Pt1, it was a bit of a, well, have a bit of that moment, wasn't it?
It was. It surprises me a little bit. I thought they would go for Pt1 for the stage today and give Marc Soler the King of the Mountain, but
No.
I'm wrong.
Let's see if they share the peak. But Soler kind of backed out of that one just a little bit. Don't know quite why.
No, he didn't.
Don't you
He
think
just
so?
didn't have the legs.
Well, there you are.
You could see there he was peddling squares, we say. He was, trying to get out of the saddle, but he kind of plopped down into the saddle, and that's when you've got the bad legs.
Well, in that case, Pt1's got every right to go for it. Maybe he gave him the nod and said, "Sir, I'm just not quite up for it. Off you go." A bit more to it than that. The other day, Pt1 made a point of saying, we're all very much together, sharing plates of sandwiches and all the rest of it back in the coach. But when in the podium house we had Marc Soler and Pt1 together that day, there was not a glance between them.
Like us to Covadonga.
Yeah. Do you remember? They didn't look, they didn't speak, and they were as close as we are in this commentary position.
Well, you highlighted very well, Carlton. That's a certain.
Let's travel into the darkness here and then emerge in the light. Metaphorically and literally. Here we are, going to one of these spectacular valleys. Do you know what I do each day? Whenever we go through some of these little places, I actually mark them up for camper van trips in the future. It's absolutely gorgeous round here. I don't mind telling you, I'm very taken with it. The topography is amazing.
It is. It's a stunning part of the world. Where was it that you were telling us about being on a camper van trip and it's rained 4 times and then you went and it was spectacular?
That was in Brittany, actually.
Oh.
I went to the Crozon Peninsula. Go and have a look at it. I actually found a beach on Google Earth, and because I've got a camper van, actually found this little cove, and there was a cafe at the back of it, and I thought, I'm going on holiday there, and I did. Got to the cafe, and it was a little creperie. And the guy, I said, "Is it okay if I sleep here tonight?" Just parked up. He said, "Of course, for free." Yeah, had a lovely meal. Yeah, of course, for free. He said, "We'll be opening for breakfast in the morning." I said, "Oh, what time?" He said, 7 o'clock for the fishermen. I said, "Oh, brilliant." So, and I was completely alone, well, apart from my dear wife, and it was amazing. We went swimming in the morning, even though we didn't have swimming trunks. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. But it just shows you, pay attention, Sean, and you can find some gorgeous places.
Yes, and we can see where we are on the descent at the moment. It looks amazing here, and so many amazing places. And when we're doing commentary in all these big tours, we say we have to go there, and yeah, we all say, but we'll have to retire very quickly if we're going to get around to all those places in a camping car.
True enough. Well, it's absolutely beautiful. We're going to welcome in to more sartorial elegance as the whole atmosphere in the commentary position gets a lift Vogue-wise, because Adam Bly's about to join us. We also have Robin McEwen, who's about to jump back into proceedings as well. First of all, we'll welcome Adam to the commentary spot as we look at some of these rather hairy technical descents. This is what we were talking about. Not the easiest way to make a living as a rider, Danny, especially when the roads are like this. Thankfully, I think it was just settled before we got over the top, so it's more of a holding pattern at the moment rather than a racing descent to try and make up ground.
It is a holding pattern, but positioning is very, very important nevertheless. So you would have definitely seen those riders that are high up on the GC with their teams almost in that lead-out position. The pace would have increased naturally at the top of the climb just to make sure they're in a good position, because gaps will develop down the descent, and as we mentioned, at the bottom of this descent, about halfway down, it becomes extremely technical with a lot of twists and turns. So if you're at the front of the peloton, it definitely means you can save a lot of energy, both physically and mentally. Physically, not having to make these accelerations. You can see Castrillo here just having to get out of the saddle, accelerate accelerate onto the back of the train. If you just don't have to do that, that is going to really keep that cup full that we talk about, that analogy throughout the stage for the energy you are going to need in the back end of the race.
Some fabulous climbs, some amazing descents as well, as you can see. They've engineered these in such a wonderful way. And thankfully, we've got a clear view of it. The weather is lovely. So is Adam Blythe. He comes to join us. What a start to the day.
It's not been the start I expected, though.
Not fireworks at the beginning, but it was a slow burn, and then suddenly it lit up.
There's still time. I still believe we are going to get more attacks from what we've had already. I reckon it's going to be on very shortly, and there's going to be more attacks coming from within this peloton. They can't just accept this is it. Can they, Carlton?
I don't know.
No. Come on, believe. We need some big attacks.
Oh, I think we'll get him. I think we'll have a hell of a battle amongst the GC. And two teams, of course, have managed to implant somebody up the road. Finn O'Connor's got a friend upstairs, and likewise Enric Mas.
They do, which is interesting, but I think an EF rider needs to get in there.
Well, they've tried.
I know that, well, they've tried for now, Colton. They're under downhill. They've got another little category 3, and I think on that category 1 in about 40k's time, we might see some fireworks. Category 1 followed by a little category 2, downhill all the way to the finish, the final 2 climbs. It's got someone's name written all over that. Bit of risk to be taken on the downhill as well.
See this strata here? The way the mountain is lined, and you see the angles that they're pointed at. That's because these mountains have crashed into each other, and that's tectonic plate movement, and I think we're going to get a bit of an earthquake today. Stage 20, penultimate stage, and we are waiting for an eruption here. It's going to be something special, I think, from the GC group, but how much of a holding pattern are they going to invoke before we actually even get there? Thankfully, we've got some spectacular scenery to enjoy along the way, but nervous times, I think it's fair to say. They almost neutralised themselves with their nerves at the beginning of the day, but also the terrain. It was a rather nasty climb straight out of the back door, which peaked up at 8, 9 and 10% apparently at one point I've been seeing, and that really neutralised any early moves, but we did get some, and right now we've got ourselves a bit of a breakaway. It seems to be a stalling on decisions as to who's going to invoke the chase. We might well hold for another couple of peaks. Our first category 1 doesn't come until halfway through today's stage, but it's gnarly before we get there, Danny.
It is gnarly before we get there. We've got, what, 2 more categorised climbs before the first categorised of the day. So it's going to be about really managing that gap. You can see Primoz Roglic on a nature break, and this is the tricky thing about today's stage, with it being either up or down. There's just nowhere to kind of have that let up, that break, that time to come off the power somewhat, either physically or mentally, because you just have to stay focused all the time. And for Primoz Roglic, we know he's been in that kind of volatile position sometimes where he has lost it in the last couple of days of a Grand Tour. So just so important for his team to look after him, create that bubble around him, which they tried to do in the Tour de France. Unfortunately, he had that crash, didn't he, where he broke his vertebrae, but thankfully managed to get back into shape for this Vuelta. But it is important for the team to really look after him on a day like today, not only on the uphills but on the downhills, more critically I would say too.
Well, it's time to welcome Robbie McEwen back into the commentary position. He's taken 9 kilometres to make himself a nice massive mug of Milo, but he's back. I'm going to take a break.
Sorry for my tardiness, Carlton. Fixing up a few issues. Hopefully my tech doesn't fail me anymore for the rest of the day. So I'll take the time now before Carlton has lunch. Now you can go off and have your steak sandwich.
Look, I've got 9 kilometres to do it. I've got a blender and a funnel. I'll be okay.
No, take your time. I'll carry through and so you can have your allotted time slot. Just make it a little later. We'll be fine.
Thank you, mate.
We'll try not to burn the place down.
That's Carlton coming back at 10k to go.
Robbie would have fallen asleep.
Danny and Adam, over to you. Well, in the time I've been gone, this break has gone from about 35 seconds out to 4:42, and on most days we would say, well, that's that then. The stage win will come from here. but they've barely done any of the climbing on today's menu, Danny.
No, they haven't, and that's why I think there will be fireworks before the last climb. We've seen EF already trying something, as Adam said, on that first category climb. That is a brute. It's a long one. And you've got those descents after it into, you know, what is the final kind of 30, 40 kilometres. So I think we will see action before the end of the day. And let's not forget, this is the last opportunity with the time trial tomorrow, with the teams that have missed out on the break, that don't have any GC guys up there either. It's the final day to try something, unless you're a time trial rider, of course, and you're going for that stage tomorrow. So I do think we will see action before that final climb.
And unless you're a sprinter, in that case, it was over 2 days ago.
That's true. That's very true.
You're finishing for finishing's sake.
But that's important, isn't it? You know, it's
Yes.
the Vuelta. You are kind of respecting the race, respecting your teammates, your sponsors, and especially if you're Caden Groves, obviously he wants to wrap that green jersey up too.
Yeah, although there's no such thing as a finisher's medal in Grand Tour racing. In fact, in any races, it is a well, it's a badge of honour to finish a Grand Tour. And unless you feel, as some who have ridden this Vuelta, you've got bigger fish to fry late in the season, you're aiming for the World Championships or the late season classics like Lombardia, you know, some of the other races still coming up that are hilly, but for the most part, you start this, you do plan to finish, and you get within a couple of days to go. Even if it's not your terrain, you'll force yourself through and at least be there with the team to celebrate the milestone of finishing what's, I would say, is one of, if not the hardest, at least on paper and with elevation meters, hardest Grand Tours we've seen in recent history.
That's the interesting bit with it, isn't it, in terms of what's on paper the hardest. But as you well know, Robbie, some of the days that are not hardest on paper are the ones which are extremely difficult as well. As you said, this, for the amount of climbing they've had, it has been super, super difficult. But if you look at the racing, there's days within the GC where they've finished on top of climbs, mountain top finishes, where they've not fully raced up there. So, and the way that everyone's performing, it's not like everyone is on their hands and knees, you know. They're still doing the numbers, they're still pushing the watts. They're not as beat up as what I'd have thought they'd have been if they'd have raced every day full gas. So yeah, it has been a hard one on paper, but I believe that there's been harder Grand Tours out there in terms of the racing that they've had on those days where you didn't expect a hard day almost.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you have those sort of undulating days, minor climbs, where if you get dropped at any point, you know 100% you're going to be outside the time limit, so you must hang on, and it's excruciating. We're on sometimes bigger mountain days, multiple Cat 1 climbs, even with all category climbs. You know at most points you can get dropped, ride your tempo, and you'll make it. Where those sort of flatter days that are still difficult are a much bigger danger of being outside the time limit.
It's like those days in like Tirreno Adriatico, you know, not the big mountains, but the days where you start and you are chewing your stem every single day, just going, when is this going to stop? And it's not even a hilly day, not even a mountainous day.
I reckon there'll be riders in this Vuelta that will say, oh yeah, we had a few of those, you must have missed it. Or it might have looked different from where you guys were sitting with your headphones on and your lovely microphones and all your flashing lights and bells and whistles. But down here, in the trenches on the bike, it was one of those days on many days.
We've got to move.
DSM and Pseudo Quick Step.
Go on, boys. On the downhill. I like it.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? On a stage like this, if you're trying to get your team into the race, make a counter-attack, if you're unable to get yourself away on the uphill sections, there's nothing against, and I'm all for it, I'm here for it. Riders say, okay, we'll do it a different way. Kasper Asgreen and Pavel Bittner. So I guess you'd expect it from Bittner, a sprinter, Adam, to choose a moment where gravity is of great assistance.
Gravity and bike handling, and we know that most sprinters are able to handle the bikes. They know the corners, they know the limits of the bike, and Asgreen as well, as we know from him, won the Tour of Flanders, beating Mathieu van der Poel in a sprint. That man knows how to handle his bike and how to throw it around corners as well. But yeah, it's good to see, trying to open that race back up.
I'd open it up, but a sprinter going on the attack like this in the downhill on a mountain stage trying to get across to the front? Is it something like the case of the small angry dog that's tied up, it's on its lead and it's barking at the big dog across the road? Suddenly the lead snaps and it's able to get there and then doesn't know what on earth it's going to do and is in great danger of being eaten.
Exactly that. There is that, but there is also the other possibility of there's two riders gone up the roads and the other DS in the other team cars. Guys, that's two riders gone up the road. We said we needed to be in the break. Come on, don't miss it. So it might just open up the door to other teams go in. There's two more gone up the road now, and then another one, and then another two, and all of a sudden you've got a group of 10, and you're like, oh, we missed it. So it might just be the case of, yes, we want to try something, but we also want to encourage other riders, other teams to start attacking as well. There's been no action from behind, so that doesn't look like it's happening, but if you don't try, you'll never know.
Oh, beautiful scenic shot of the high ground that we'll be passing over quite a lot of on today's stage. Maybe not quite as high as where our heli just brought us a shot from, but certainly this is, on paper, all that it's cracked up to be. Ryder's been talking about the Queen stage over a week ago and 10 days ago into Granada, and then conveniently forgetting that this stage has the most climbing metres of this entire welter. And I guess it must be somewhat fulfilling for them to say we had two Queen stages in this welter, not like those other Grand Tours with just the one.
Queen stage and a King stage.
And they're just the pawns in the game.
Oh, there'll be a lot of pawns in this right now. I'm sure.
I don't know what it makes us, but...
No, I have no idea. Interesting that Vlasov's on the front quite early.
Well, early in the stage, I don't know if you had the benefit of being out of the studio from the breakaway early enough to see the very first kilometres as they hit the foot of the Puerta de Braguilla, 5.8k at 5.9%. Very first uphill, after about 3 kilometres, Alexander Vlasov was down at the back. There was a group distance briefly who had to chase their way back on, and very last man of that group was Alexander Vlasov, which was quite curious after the incredible work that he delivered for Primoz Roglic yesterday. And it begged the question of, is he just having an off moment early on after a really difficult finale yesterday, or is there something more wrong with Vlasov? But the fact that putting him on the front now may tell us a lot about his condition and what the team expects of him the rest of the day. And it can often shuffle around, can't it, where you'd expect someone to do something and then the roles get reversed?
Yeah, the way that Vlasov was riding yesterday has been riding. I can't imagine he'd just take that much of a change, unless, by the looks of things, he's taking it incredibly easy at the minute.
And at the moment, we also seem to be missing Patrick Gamper and Nico Dentz towards the front of the group as well.
They might
Not
have
sure.
nature break and bottles, maybe. So they're just knocking it off at the minute, making sure those guys get back in easy. Hence why we're seeing seeing him on the front right now.
Yeah. Still curious to see Vlasov, the one being the rider on the front, rather than maybe Aliotti, for example. But what a brilliant job yesterday on the climb. I could only imagine being in that group of GC favourites and looking up and seeing Red Bull doing a sprint lead out. It was phenomenal.
It was like a team time trial, wasn't it? The performance of Danny Martinez and Vlasov yesterday was just amazing. They just dropped everyone, didn't they? But also the performance of Primoz Roglic. We thought he was going to go a lot later than he did, but I think it was around 5.8 kilometres to go where he ended up solo, and he climbed yesterday's climb a minute faster than 4 years ago, and that was on stage 8 in 2020 versus stage 19 yesterday. So it just shows the kind of legs that he's got as well after coming back from that crash. 6.75 watts per kilo on that climb yesterday, Robbie, for 30 minutes.
Wow. I mean, if there were any doubts about Primoz Roglic's form, then that is the answer. The science and the numbers say it all. That is just an absolutely huge amount of watts to be pushing out. Okay, it wasn't a really, really long climb. As you said, a half an hour at those wattages is absolutely massive on day 19 of a Grand Tour. And
That's what I mean.
I guess
like, how hard has it actually been to be able to do that? I know riders are coming on, but when you look at like, yes, it's hard on paper, but is it being that difficult if you can still do that on stage 19?
Yeah, because we often compare it to other riders around a rider like Roglic, don't we? And say, okay, he was much, much better, head and shoulders above the rest, etc., etc. But when you put it into those numbers, it is really quite incredible.
It is, yeah. And I mean, these GC guys, the GC riders especially, they know how to perform day in, day out. The whole fighting against that fatigue and making sure you can do those numbers at the end of a Grand Tour is massive. And let's not forget as well, when he came into this Vuelta, he's probably built throughout it, you know, after the crash in the Tour de France, getting ready for this. He's probably ridden himself into form throughout this race.
Which was his prediction early on in this Vuelta, wasn't it? He said that, you know, my back is hurting from that injury in the Tour de France, but it will get better as the race goes on. And there were questions from other quarters of, well, is this just talking it up and trying to put the others off? But Roglic is not one to talk a big game. He answers the questions in an interview. He is polite, but doesn't give a lot of insight. He says a lot of words, but never gives anything away.
I won't go that far, Robbie.
No, well, it's okay. The words he says outside of I mean,
yeah,
he's polite about.
He is,
the sort of cliches of cycling, I would say. But talking about his injury and how much pain he was in was quite un-Primoz.
It was, yeah. I find it very interesting that he was very open with it as well, you know, didn't hold back on saying his back's hurting. And I guess that's one thing we never really hear, you know, within teams, they want to keep things private if someone's not feeling good, if they're ill, or if they have got niggles and injuries. Normally they'll keep that quiet so other teams don't try and take advantage of that, but maybe that was it as well, you know, saying that his back's hurting and just trying to play that mind game with people to think, oh, so his back's hurting, but yet he's still keeping up, yet he's still attacking.
Danny, what do you make of his interviews when asked about the team tactics and you know, was it his idea for the team to ride? I assume you saw those interviews this morning?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was something we discussed on the breakaway because yesterday after the stage he came out and said, he almost looked frustrated as well. He said, oh, it wasn't down to me. I didn't want to almost attack when I did. The team said that they had nothing else to do. They wanted to ride, but it wasn't my decision. And I found it quite surprising, actually, because if you've got a leader in a race, someone who's going for, you know, the win of a Grand Tour, you would have thought that they would make every single call on the road, and it would just be a case of the domestiques doing everything that they could in their power to do whatever it was that Primoz Roglic in this case asked them to do. But that wasn't the case yesterday. We don't know where the instruction came from, whether it's from one of the team or whether it was from the DS. But even so, it almost highlighted maybe Primoz himself not being so confident and wanting to wait and wait and wait until maybe today's stage or maybe even the time trial, because he only sat, 5 seconds behind Ben O'Connor yesterday, and with his time trial would have been confident to win over that. But
I don't reckon he'd have wanted to risk it on a time trial, on a 24k time trial, possibly a crashing puncture. I don't think he'd have wanted to risk that. I think that he'd have wanted just to save that fatigue, you know, coming into a day like today. I can imagine that he'd have wanted to wait as long as possible to take maximum time with the smallest possible effort with this day in mind, and trying to save his legs for this day as much as possible. But it's a tough one as well, because whoever that call came from, it worked, but it was a big call and a big effort, not just from him, but from 2, 3, 4 teammates and the riders that rode on the flat beforehand as well. So it's a lot of effort, not just for Primoz, but for the whole team. So it might be that what Primoz wanted in terms of rider management, not just himself, but for the whole team, not going into a day like today, was maybe what he was alluding to. Sorry, Robert.
Sorry, Adam. Just in on that, what you just said, I mean, it seemed to me, I don't know if it felt like it to you, but like someone had torn this stage's page out of the race book on all the Red Bull race books that they had, because the tactic they used yesterday, you talk about how hard today is going to be and how decisive it can be. And although they threw everything they threw at it yesterday, seemingly not even contemplating today at all, that seemed to me like a risky move in itself.
And hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? And if he doesn't lose any time today, which I don't think he will, they will say, well, it was a perfect plan because they took so much time yesterday, they could just defend today, job done. But if he is isolated today because of the work that they did yesterday, and he finds himself in a position where maybe he's got to chase alone or he's fatigued in that effort that he had to sustain on yesterday's stage, then it was the worst decision in the world. So, I mean, I think we'll find out soon, won't we?
Yeah, only ever a good plan if someone's strong enough to back it up, I suppose. Whether it's their plan or not. 117.8 kilometres to go, and they're now on the second categorised climb of the day, another Category 3. And talking of the categorised climbs today, Jay Vine taking the maximum points on the first climb of the day, 3 points, which has vaulted him back into the lead of the King of the Mountains competition above Marc Soler. And I was actually just out of the room when they crested the top, and I didn't get to catch the sprint or lack of a sprint at the top. What was your impression of how that went down, and an insight into maybe what will happen later on between those two?
Oh, we shall see. We can't ever predict what Marc Soler is going to do, but I can't imagine he's going to get on to not this climb, but the next climb. Jay Vine gets his 6 points he'll take in total, but then you've got the Category 2s, the Category 1s coming up, and that's where bigger points are available. And I'm sure that's where Marc Soler will start to go on the attack quite early as well, Robbie. For the stage finish, for the stage victory, obviously. He's not going to wait all that time. He'll want to make sure he's alone for quite a lot of them, I can imagine.
What have your thoughts been, Robbie, on this situation that we've had, obviously, for UAE with Marc Soler, Jay Vine almost being joint on points? We've only got 300 metres until the top of this next category climb.
Just a quick one as well there, Rob, before we get into that. Ineos Grenadiers taking over from Red Bull on the front. Rodriguez is obviously up to something today and feels good. My prediction was that first category climb, he'll go on the attack there, open it up. We know how good he is at descending. So maybe the open
Well, he's got a lot to gain.
To go.
Well, he's sitting 6th overall at the start of this stage. Sorry, that was yesterday's result. Carlos Rodriguez sitting 7th overall, but just 8 seconds behind Sciella Musa, 22 behind David Gaudu. So that's the battle as we see the top of the climb. And Jay Vine takes maximum points once again in front of Pablo Castrillo. And Marc Soler just taking the last point. But then
Marc Soler attack.
Marc Soler rides straight on through, gives the signal. Swap turns with me. Oh, I'm on my own, how convenient. And pushes on.
I thought he'd attack early, but this is early.
Well, Marc Soler
Can you imagine
is
Jay
like
now?
the old Forrest
head.
Gump. Yeah, because you would assume not only as a teammate, but as a rider in general, and what he's been through over the last few months of the season, and he's also in this race very recently, Jay Vine would be the last one who wants to mount a chase on a descent.
Exactly.
Particularly as his own teammate, but the bandages speak 1,000 words, don't they? So maybe not the time to try and match his teammate. I mean, we could go on all day guessing what Marc Soler is going to do, and we could have 1,000 guesses and still not quite hit the mark, couldn't we?
Very true.
Now he's an early bid, though. Now he's an early
That
bid.
is.
And even if he said this was for the state, he's been bought back.
Oh, he's come
been
back.
bought
He's
Yeah,
come
that's
back.
all right. He's a clever guy.
I'm not even going to speculate on why that was. I think, actually, I will speculate. I think often it's just because he can.
Yeah. It's keeping everyone on their toes, probably, including us.
Keeping everybody confused. I mean, that's one way to win a race. You've got to have the strong legs as well at a certain point. But, yeah, he is an absolute enigma that I am fascinated with the way he approaches a race and how he rides. We do have a bit of a laugh, but it's with the utmost respect for his ability on the bike.
I think that's
just
the
want that to be
frustrating
clear
thing.
to everyone.
I think that's a frustrating thing, Robbie. I think it comes because he is such a talented bike rider. He is such a strong rider, and just that we question his tactics sometimes because he could win so many more races.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at what he does and the energy wastage that's there. If you could channel that, I think there's a lot more in there. And in the past, when he was Movistar, he won Paris-Nice. Even maybe not in the most conventional manner when he did that, but he has just tons of ability and he wins great races. But I agree with you. I think he could win a lot more. But if you corralled him, it's something like a wild horse. If you broke him in, it'd just be nowhere near as exciting, and it may actually just dull his enthusiasm for going up the road. Here's the provisional King of the Mountains classification. Jay Vine now moves 4 points clear of Marc Soler. So that's as good as nothing with what's still to come on this stage, with just 2 Category 3s now out of the way. The rest of the day is Category 2, Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 1, Cat 1. That spells pain.
In a funny old way, but yes, it does spell pain. It starts to get hard from here on in. And that sounds
It's
ridiculous.
in binary.
Oh. That gap is coming down though. Ineos riding on the front. Rodriguez is obviously feeling good.
Well, Rodriguez is, 8 seconds now behind Matthias Schellmorse in the white jersey competition. 108 back to Lipovic from Schellmorse. But maybe Carlos Rodriguez just wants a longer, harder day, pace on all day, to just fatigue his own rivals. Welcome back. Have you been off on a break? In the meantime, the breakaways crested the second Category 3 climb of the day. Jay Vine taking top points there. So 3 added on to his tally. Marc Soler taking the 1 point for third, and in between them was Pablo Castrillo, 2-time stage winner in this Vuelta. So Jay Vine now leads the King of the Mountain competition by 4 points over his teammate, but with so much more climbing to come today and a whole bunch of points on offer, it is far from a done deal just yet. While back in the peloton, Ineos Grenadiers have taken up control on the front, riding tempo, and have just pushed Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe back away from the front, who didn't seem overly intent on chasing the break in any way, shape or form. It was just tempo riding. So the tempo's gone up a little bit now, and the gap is just starting to shrink back in the advantage of the peloton. But with 5:41 and 112k to go, that is a very workable gap for the peloton and any team who wants to really lay it down, because we've seen on other days, breaks in front, 5-6 minutes, you say, okay, that'll be it. They will win. This stage is just getting started.
Oh, it's getting started, all right. I think what will happen now is Ineos setting this hard tempo. Depending on how close they get, this will get so hard, I can imagine, for a lot of riders will start to be dropped. That when they get onto this next category 2 and then the Category 1 straight after it, that's when it will start to really open up. That Category 1 will open up the doors for a lot of the riders within there to go on the attack after that.
Well, you can see the real difference between the front of the peloton and the back here. A lot more rocking and rolling, little gaps between riders at the back of the pelotons. They just struggle to maintain contact over the top compared to that metronomic style just set at the front by the stronger climbers in the bunch doing their super domestique work. Now, Carlos Rodriguez being 8 seconds down on Schellmorse, so you can compare those two in a time trial. You'd expect tomorrow in the TT in Madrid that Matthias Schellmorse will be significantly stronger than Carlos Rodriguez. So it's like he's laying it all on the line, willing to risk a 7th overall.
Good on you, son.
Try and take the white jersey, and I rate it.
Yeah, I rate it as well. I think that's one of the nice things, isn't it, when you see riders that are, and teams that are like, you know what, we've got one last chance at this. Let's give it a good old nudge here and see what we can do. And that's exactly what they're doing. Rodriguez, as we know, I said in the breakaway earlier, that Category 1, the Category 2 especially before the final 2 climbs of the day, I think when he can get onto there and with his descending capabilities, if he can open up a gap there and really put the likes of Skelmos under pressure, the other riders that are above him on GC under pressure, he will have a good shot. So there'll be a lot of riders that want to save a lot of energy for that final climb of the day.
Marc Soler just hand up, signalling for his team car up here in the break. So 2 riders from UAE up here in the break, and then 1 man from Decathlon, Agidozela Mondial, Clément Berthet, Marco Frigo from the Israel Premier Tech squad, Sylvain Monique for Lotto Destiny, Carlos Canal, the man representing Movistar, just here at the back of that main group, just slightly ahead of Marc Soler. Jack Haig from Bahrain Victorious, the Australian, been in a number of moves but hasn't really managed to jag himself that big result just yet. Last chance saloon today. Thomas Champion from Cofidis. Harold Tejada, who's been incredibly aggressive throughout this Vuelta, been in a number of breaks and went so agonisingly close to a stage victory in the first week of the race when he was caught by Primoz Roglic just 500 metres from the top. And of course, Pablo Castrillo, as mentioned, the 2-time stage winner, the man from the wildcard team, Kern Farmer, who have had just a block-busting Vuelta with 3 stage victories when you include that of Urco Berardi a couple of days ago, very close to his hometown of Pamplona. So it has just been a magnificent Vuelta for the Kern Farmer squad, and you'd have to think that's earned them an invitation back to this race for as long as they want one, because they've not only animated the race early on, getting into a number of breaks, but the success they've had is, well, I really hope that it elevates their team to the next level, that they get a big financial injection, maybe more sponsorship either from Kern or a secondary sponsor, and they can keep building on what they're doing there, because it's a fantastic program. Thanks to Adam Blythe.
Sorry,
I think he's going. Are you going off for lunch, Adam?
I'll be back in 18k, yeah, but I'm just going to go and have a quick toilet stop, refresh myself, get ready for the final. When I mean final, I mean 90k's to go.
Sorry, I asked.
Which could be the final. 90k could be the final if Marc Soler has anything to do with it as well.
Oh, you might start it while you're all still out. So, all right, see you back again soon. Welcome back, Carlton Kirby and Sean Kelly. That was a quick visit to the buffet.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is closed, but but anyway, luckily we came with sandwiches. What about this man? Tried to feast over the top. What is your reading on the dynamic between Soler, who pushed on the descent, and I think that was just to build in a bit of slip time for him. We talk about slip time on climbs, but Soler wanted some shuffle time on the descent. It's not his favourite thing, Robbie.
No, it's not his favourite thing, nor is it the favourite thing of Jay Vine. We commented on that as Marc Soler didn't really contest the mountain points, that Jay Vine just cruised over the top in first, but Soler did make sure he picked up 1 behind Castrillo. But yeah, just that pushing on straight over the top, and I speculated it's simply because he can. He just likes to push the pedals. He likes to feel some tension on the chain under his feet. But as you said, yeah, he's not broken any records in the descent category on this Vuelta, and it's not his favourite thing. And the worst thing he could have done was increase the pace and got both himself and Jay Vine in trouble. And I wonder if that, Carlton and Sean, is something that the rest of that group is taking into consideration for later on in this stage, because they will know very, very well the capabilities and the shortcomings of each and every rider in this break.
Well, that will be an interesting one as we go much later into the final. And yeah, the advantage they have at the moment, there's 5+ minutes, and we can see Munoz coming to the front. It's not a guaranteed one that this break will be go all the way, because if there's other teams who want to push on, I think the terrain presents that opportunity to close this 5 minute plus advantage down. So they will try and keep it together out front, and I think the teams that are up there, they will be getting that order, try and keep our forces together and just keep or pull out this advantage as much as possible, because this final is a real difficult one, and in between it's a real tester as well.
Well, no surprise, I don't think, to see Ineos Grenadiers trying their level best to get something out of this race in the form of Carlos Rodriguez, who's seated top spots in the Young Riders classification. 8 seconds it is that Shelmos leads that now. They've certainly woken up all of a sudden to their duties today, and it kind of puts me in mind how quiet they've been for far too long, Sean, in these Grenadiers.
Well, they're having a difficult Vuelta, and you know, it just, the story goes on. Having a difficult year, really. The number of wins they've had this year is a lot, you know, down on what they had last year and the previous year. So they're struggling in this Vuelta, and they've had, you know, the bad luck as well, because Timo Arnsman went out, Lawrence de Plus. Those two guys, if they were here today, this sort of terrain would be the perfect for terrain for them to get into the breakaway. Josh Tarling also, of course, you know, he had a difficult start, crashing in that and went out of the race quite earlier on. So, you know, they're down 3 riders, and you know, if you have 1 or 2 riders that are not performing well with the rest of the riders in the team, well then you're very limited to try and get into the breakaways. But they've taken it up here, and it looks like they're going to go for the long haul, because still 107 kilometres. This is a long way for a team to take it on, and it'll be interesting now to see the advantage, what will happen out front. Will it stabilise? And if it does, well then, that's what I say. This breakaway will be getting concerned that, you know, they won't have enough as we go into the final 40, 50 kilometres off the stage.
I wonder whether there's a certain whiff of a PR exercise here from Ineos Grenadiers, just to remind us that they're very much in the frame, very much still part of, indeed, this race. They've been very quiet. We were expecting so much loudness from them as well. The disappointment that was borne by Josh Tarling at the top of this race, I really felt for him, to be honest. Losing Aronsman was a blow, and then Lawrence de Plus as well. A phenomenal engine room within mountains and uphill and down dale, and so yeah, they really found themselves just a little bit wounded, and so they've got to get something out of it, Sean. And Carlos Rodriguez needs this, I would suggest, Young Riders jersey on behalf of the team. It's been a difficult time.
Yes, well, we've talked about that you know, many times during this season.
True enough, yeah.
Ineos Grenadiers, you know, not performing to the level we would be expecting them, and yeah, a lot of rumours going around what's the problem within the team, and we've been hearing that you know, that talk as well, that is not gelling well together, and of course that can have an effect on the riders. It can, you know, go down to the performance, and yeah, it's a team that, you know, they definitely need to have a look at things, and you know, going into the seasons to come, they have to try and get their finger on the button to see what is the problem. And you know, we see the team they've got here as well, and you know, they're losing a very good rider in Jonathan Navarez. He's leaving the team, and he's the one has been very, you know, performant in this Vuelta. He's been in breakaways, but just not able to get a stage victory. So they're, you know, they're losing some good riders. They are getting some new riders in, but certainly, you know, within that team, they really have to up their game if they're going to be able to match the other teams that they should be matching. With the budget they have got, you know, they're not performing to that level at all.
Well, they set the template, didn't they, really, as to what is efficacy in the professional game, professional sport, really. Bit of just snaffled here. Well, another view of Teletubby Land. It's absolutely glorious, isn't it? It almost looks manufactured, it's so perfect. Somebody's been out with a lawnmower, you might think. Well, I think it's probably grazing animals, quite frankly, but there's a real look to it. Puts me in mind of the old Richard Harris film, The Field. Glorious. It's an emerald part of the world, as you can see. And of course, Sean hails for another one. What can we get from Eddie Dunbar today, Sean?
Well, I think they are going to be disappointed within the team of Jaco Lewis that did not make the breakaway. And we could see the moment this group formed, they were trying to rectify it, and they were going to the front of the peloton. There were some of the riders really pushing on and trying to close down this breakaway, but they just weren't, you know, able to do that, because, you know, this one, they worked very well. The moment they got that gap of 30 seconds, they really gelled well together, and, you know, they they managed, to get that advantage of that minute and a half, 2 minutes. When you get onto the climbs, it's a bit too much to bridge across. And we did see riders, we see Asgreen there beating those riders trying to come across. When it's that 4 minutes, well, then it's a real difficult route. But now it's coming back to a situation maybe with Ineos Grenadiers riding here. Will they take the advantage down, and the other teams will start getting involved as well later into this? And there's so much climbing to be done at this stage. Well, the opportunity to get back into the race and try and go for a stage might come back to them.
It may, and I kind of feel with this move, it possibly will. They clearly feel they've got the sort of strength, Ineos Grenadiers, to deliver Carlos Rodriguez into a place of indeed happiness up front in that battle for the Young Riders jersey competition. Primož Roglic not that far off the front. He's given to riding there, Sean, and seems quite happy to install himself in front of the wings of the aircraft, if you see what I mean.
Yes, well, I think you have to stay on the front end of affairs and be there at the points where it's of importance, the downhills, and yeah, we can see there the situation on the road. Asgreen there, he is in no man's land really, and it is a difficult one. But yeah, you have to ride in that top 20-30 riders. When you're coming to the crucial points, the descents, get more close to the front of the peloton, get behind your teammates as well, the riders that you have the confidence in to go down and leave them, just guide you down as well. And this day is working out real well for Bora Hansgrohe, Red Bull. We see in the earlier part when the breakaway was out and there was a lot of action, still riders thinking they could get across. They were trying to calm the situation, and they did it quite well, and they let this gap go out. But now it's Ineos who are taking it up, and still 4:21. It's a long way to bridge across, but there's a long way to the finish as well. So they definitely have the road to do that. Will they be good enough to dent that 4 minutes 20 to the leading group of 10?
Sometimes we get on ominous days, and they almost put the frighteners on everybody. And there's a sense that occasionally you can just get defensive as a unit. And I'm just wondering whether that maybe washed over everyone today. They sort of looked at the parkour and thought, well, provided it's within range and nothing silly has happened, then maybe it's once the big categories start to come our way. The Lunada is indeed the climb after the one that they're just upon at the moment. This is the category 2 test of the Caracol, and then indeed the Lunada starts to loom in the thoughts of everybody, because that's the first sort of major climb. In fact, it's the longest climb of today will be coming up. Here we go, attrition rate, Sean, we talk about it, and Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe is starting to lose personnel.
Yes, well, we can see Danny Martinez there just slipping out.
Important.
And, it was a little one. I was wondering why was he riding so early in the day, because normally, if you look at yesterday, Danny Martinez and Vlasov, they were the ones who launched Primož Roglic into the climb and really put on a real killer of a pace, and the other GC men just were not able to follow. And we see Vlasov doing the final turn there, and then Primož Roglic taking it up just around the 5 kilometres to go. But at that point they already had a gap from the other ones in the GC standings, notably Enric Mas and Carapaz and co. That was an impressive one. But yeah, Martinez riding this early in the stage, I was wondering why was he, because it's normally the other riders within that team you would see being put to the work in the earlier part of the day.
I'm wondering, it kind of shows just what the fatigue is like out there. Sean, it adds a spanner into the works potentially for Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, who gave so much yesterday. Roglic said he was surprised, almost a polite way of saying, I couldn't really get a handle on indeed what was going on. Here's Vlasov at the back, just struggling to stay with it by the look of him, Sean, as well. Is it just fatigue after such a tough race and going so deep yesterday? Are they paying the price for those moves?
Well, I think this man here, Vlasov, and Danny Martinez, they were the ones who rode in the final yesterday. Yeah. So they did not ride, for long hours, kilometres in the front. It's the ones that we see, Nico Dens and Gamper. They were the ones who, did a huge amount of the work in the earlier part. And to see this man losing contact, this is not a good one. And also Danny Martinez we see there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a good situation at this point in the race to be losing, you know, the important men really for this final. And with all the time we have to do, Primož Roglič might, you know, miss those guys in the end.
Goodness me. Well, is the blood in the water? And what are the Sharks going to do about it? This, to my mind, plays very strongly into the hands of Enric Mas later on. He's got a man up the road, kept it sensible yesterday, even said, Sean, late on that, you know, both he and Richard Carapaz kind of just bode their time yesterday. Mas himself saying that Roglic seemed to be a class apart. Well, right now, there are pupils leaving that class, I'm afraid, for Primož Roglic. Those around him are it's getting to be limited. If he gets isolated, Sean, what sort of pressure will they invoke upon him?
Well, he just has to follow the men that he needs to follow, and we're into the point of the race now, penultimate stage. When you look at that GC standings, you know, Roglic, he has a good lead on Ben O'Connor, 1:54, and then Enric Mas is, you know, 2 minutes 20. Carapaz at 2:54. You just have to play that tactic right and follow the guys, Ben O'Connor, Mas, Carapaz. Don't leave them get away from you. And then if David Gaudu, Skelmus, Carlos Rodriguez, for example, Landa, who is quite a bit down, the guys who are close to you in the standing, second, third, fourth place, they will ride also. And that's what you've got to do. If you haven't got the teammates around you, then you have to be able to read the race and work that tactic very well.
I'm getting slightly worried for Primož Roglic. Now, just getting back in, and you can come and go even within a day. I'm actually beginning to wonder whether it is just fatigue or whether there's something a little bit more. Are they unwell? I don't know. But Danny Martinez and Alexander Vlasov, for them to suffer at the beginning of today, I think it's a mark of just how tough it's been. And indeed how much they put in yesterday. Roglic himself, Sean, was talking about the fact that the decision to go for it yesterday was not his. Oh, and he's lost the back wheel again here, Sean Vlasov. This is not a happy ship.
No, it's a one yesterday we were, you know, thinking about, and I suppose when we see that Primož Roglic was talking about, yeah, we didn't really want to go for it yesterday, but the team said we had to go for it, and then, yeah, I had to, you know, finish it off in the end. I think, you know, he was maybe saying that he didn't want to maybe control the breakaway, but it was always going to be down to the battle between the GC men and try and get that red jersey back. But yeah, he didn't say that it was a tactic right from the beginning to go for the stage win.
No, so I hope he doesn't live to have to make an account of himself at the end of today. His advantage overall is, well, it's a decent one, let's put it that way. I guess some would say handsome at a minute and 54 over Ben O'Connor. Everyone's been talking about Ben O'Connor being vaulted by Enric Mas and potentially Richard Carapaz. Carapaz and indeed EF Education Easy Post have showed a lot of ambition in this race, and in fact they've also done so today. They tried, they failed, but they did try to get over. And it was snuffed out by some sterling effort yet again from, guess who, Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. Policing duties at the beginning of today, compounded by the efforts they put in yesterday. I've got a feeling that Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe may well have burnt a few tickets here, I'm afraid. And there's going to just be one ticket to ride left for Primož Roglic late on. How will he sustain the blows that are bound to fall upon him from a still reasonably strength Movistar team? Well, we'll see what Nairo Quintana can offer up as a wheel to Mas. Hasn't been much so far. He's done his bit, but it might be time for him to go stellar. And Rubio, of course, still very much involved. They've got a man in the break, we remind you, in the form of Carlos Canal. They could be playing an absolute blinder. I guess we're going to find out. Lots of struggles to be seen. Kasper Asgreen certainly showed a lot of willing to get off and up the road. He's just going to accept another rider in the caboose. In fact, I thought it was actually going to be somebody bridging, but no, it's the peloton. And that effort, Sean, that he put in, costly, I think, and that's the end of that.
Well, we did see in the early part of the day, he was the first one to attack, and there was not many riders wanted to join at that point, and then they missed the break of the day, and he tried to get across with Bittner from the team DSM Firmenich, and the gap was a huge one for the two riders to do that, and we can see now both of them are being swallowed back by the peloton again here, and it's still the same group out in front, but look at the advantage. It's coming down 3:30 at the moment. Ineos Grenadiers are piling on the pressure here, and that's what we're seeing. This man, he's been pulled back into the main peloton. The rear of the peloton, we're seeing riders into difficulty already. We're still 100 plus kilometres to go, and this is going to be a real killer of a day, and this final is going to be a real test. And will we see some of the big favourites maybe getting into big difficulty? And we talked about that in the earlier part of our programme. Roglic looked so good yesterday, really putting in that sucker punch against his rivals for the GC and the red jersey, and it can change very quickly in the matter of 24 hours. And the other guys, Ben O'Connor, Mas, Carapaz, all of those guys, Skelmos, we could see some of them leapfrogging big time, but we could also see some of them having difficulty in the end of this day. So it was always going to be a day. It was one, they could call maybe the Queen stage of the Vuelta, and it's certainly turning out to be like that, because the way they're riding here is going to be more difficult again. Not only the terrain, but the way they're tackling the stage very earlier on.
I think so. I must admit, I'm starting to have a few fears. Well, for everybody, pensive, and yeah. I'm just wondering. Primož Roglic is outstanding, of course. He is the leader of this race. The longer this goes on and the hurt is displayed by his team, I think the more encouragement other teams are going to have. At the moment, the policing duty is being done by Ineos Grenadiers, and this is because Carlos Rodriguez is so well placed in the young riders competition. And so they have every reason to try and push on, because quite frankly they are looking for Carlos Rodriguez to find 8 seconds and possibly more. Meanwhile, Jay Vine decides to depart proceedings. Clement Berthet stays with him. Marc Soler in the King of the Mountains, beg your pardon. Jay Vine is back there. Jay Vine is the owner of that jersey, but only for the time being. Now, Marc Soler backed out of a couple of Category 3s. He's now completely minded to go for this Category 2. Clement Berthet has come along to join him for the fun here. No sign of Castrillo just yet, but there he is, rocking and rolling. Castrillo with 2 stage wins to his name. Got to believe that he could go quite deep into this race, possibly deeper than those around him. And so he's dragging himself up, and in so doing, he brings Frigo along for the fun. And here's the moment, John, from the back, up and over the top. There's Jay Vine starting to think about this next categorised climb. He goes. I'm just watching what Jay Vine does here. Stays put. There we are. Well, that's a proper teammate's work there from Jay Vine. I'm not quite sure whether he can expect too much in return. Let's wait and see. So that's going for it, Sean, and he wants to put another stamp, another hand back on this jersey.
Well, I think this is the team tactic, because we see with Castrillo, he is quite fast over the top of the climbs as well. So what they're trying to do is, distance him and use the numbers, and that's the reason Marc Soler is going out in front here, and Jay Vine is going to just sit back, and if Castrillo moves, well then Jay Vine will have to move. But in the meantime, the man from Decathlon, he's going to take some points as well. So yeah, that takes, I suppose, that challenge from Castrillo, and with the climbs and the points available further into this stage, I think that's what they're concerned about within UAE. They want to use, the numbers with Soler and Jay Vine that they have got in the breakaway.
So they're asking for a turn from Clement Berthet, who says, "You've got to be joking." I do love this. It's one of the fascinating things within cycling, Sean, is where it's the dynamic between those who find themselves in each other's company, and they have to formulate essentially an alliance. But they get shredded, these alliances, very, very quickly, it seems. Goodness me. further down the mountain here. Just look at this phalanx of Movistar riders. When they all stand together on the podium, it says, And right now, I'm kind of making that noise while I ask a question. Are they going to go for it, Sean? They are, but when are they going to do it?
Well, that is the question, and Movistar, we've seen him, start riding on the front, but at times when it didn't look like it was going to work, and it never did work. They have a team here who can do quite well, but I think they utilise the riders at a totally wrong time. They need to keep them for the final, and I mean in the final here, before we get on to the two final climbs of the day, that's where you have to really try and make it difficult. But the problem is, Primož Roglič is just going to follow in the wheel of Enric Mas and the rest of the GC men. And it's going to be a very difficult one, unless you can isolate Primož Roglič and get away with some of your teammates. Use your teammates out front, for example, which some of the teams have here today. That is the best way to do it. But yeah, I think Primož Roglič will be aware to that first of all, the teams that have men in the front, he has to make sure that the GC men he has to mark, they cannot get away from and use the riders in between. So I think Primož Roglič is going to be in control here today, unless he goes through a difficult time sometime during the stage. But looking at his performance yesterday, I cannot see him, if he works his tactic well and reads the race, he's not going to allow any of the GC men in danger to him to get up the road.
Well, they say if you want something doing, you better do it yourself. Marc Soler is indeed that man. Just seeing who is bridging, and it's Vine who comes up. Now, is Vine going to sail by them? Let's have a look. 500 metres to go. Vine now, as you may well know, having taken a couple of points on the open two climbs today, and now it's between the pair of them. And Soler says, go on, go for it. There we are. So there is an accord here, and Jay Vine comes through and takes that King of the Mountains. Category 2, Sean, enhanced points for him and an enhanced lead in that competition now over his teammate.
Yes, and I think they did a good job there with Castrillo. He was the one who was trying to ride from behind and close down on Soler, and then Vine just slips him before the top.
Vine takes the latest peak, and now they start just the latest in a sequence of descents, and as we said, there's plenty of that today. Beautiful swooping curves, as you can see, and thankfully we're dry today, Sean, because with so much descending it could have been a problem.
Well, it would be a real difficult one with the wet rain. It's not something that it would be a nice day at all. It would just make it so much more dangerous, and great that the conditions are good, and perfect conditions for bike racing. Dry conditions, which is really important, and this is what they need today. And after 3 weeks of racing, it's extreme warm conditions. We had some wet conditions, but only very few days. But today is the day you do not want to have the wet roads.
Absolutely. Well, we've got beautiful sunshine just poking through around the clouds, and clouds gathering, are they? Not sure, over Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. Certainly a big display of force by Decathlon AG Tour Le Mondial. Ben O'Connor, of course, handing over the red leader's jersey to Primož Roglič, who owns that by a spectacular margin after yesterday. Let's just catch up with the popular jersey competition. It's 5 points to Vine, 3 to Soler, meaning Vine now finds himself 6 points clear of Soler in the mountains competition. Castrillo still with a sniff at it, but to be honest, he'd have to basically come through, win the entire day. Mind you, he's done that twice already. So you never know what to expect from that man. Meanwhile, Soler is deemed to be not the best descender, and but Clement Berthet has decided that his wheel is the one he's going to follow. Berthet's refused to come through and take any kind of turns out there, because his avowed aim is to be in the break. For Ben O'Connor, this could be, Ben O'Connor's been off our sort of radar just a little bit, Sean. This could be a massive day of redemption for Ben.
Well, Ben O'Connor is still in a great position to podium at the end of this race, but it's going to be a big battle on the final of this stage. Will he be down to the final mountain top finish, or will it be the penultimate climb? Both are first category climbs, so they are real difficult ones, and after the day they're going to have to get through here. It is going to be a big battle, but Ben O'Connor, we can see there, he's going to have a lot of work to do, because 26 seconds ahead of Enric Mas. We see yesterday the way Ben suffered in the final number of kilometres to the finish. It's not a big buffer at all, so he's going to have to put up a great performance, but yeah, he's still on podium, and you just have to go out there and do his best.
Simple as. Welcome back, those of you who have been away. Coming down into the valley bottom, we're just counting our blessings that we haven't had too much rain. Beautiful surface, albeit a little bit heavy on occasion. This little gravel, as you can see, topper to the road surface. Looks like it's red, almost like the Mall in London. Maybe an homage to royalty. We'll probably come across an amazing castle in a few moments' time. But anyway, up and out of the top, and it was Jay Vine that bridged up past Marc Soler to take the King of the Mountains points, the rack of them, 5 because of the category 2. 3 went to Marc Soler, who finished in second place, and so it is Jay Vine that just extends his lead marginally in the King of the Mountains competition, and the pair of them doing a very, very good job. They're going to have to as well. Doing a great job today is Ineos Grenadiers of putting the hurt on and also cutting this gap. Now, don't forget, it was nudging up towards 6 minutes, hovering around there. It's down to 4 minutes and 12 as we stand. I think it would have been happily within the 3-minute margin of most of the breakaway, but Jay Vine, Marc Soler and Clement Berthet have just pushed on this descent. Very familiar, I must admit. 92.9 kilometres from home, and this descent will be dealt with reasonably quickly. This is not as technical as we've had. It's quite swooping roads cut into this amazing limestone region, as you can see. Just spectacular. They're going to come to the bottom almost bounced. In fact, our brake have reassembled, and now they are climbing. And he just can't help himself, Marc Soler. This is a long climb. It's a category 1 test. And indeed now, look, the call to circulate by Clement Berthet, and the answer to him is absolutely not. Berthet wants assistance, and now he's going to have to do it himself. So he kicks off the front. He's going to try and bridge over to Marc Soler, who's flown the coupe. And it's had a detonating effect on our breakaway. Soler's done it again, Sean.
Yes, well, he's been doing it in this Vuelta so many times, and he continues on doing it, and he must be hated by the men in the breakaway, because when you get into a breakaway, normally with 92 plus kilometres to go, 4-minute advantage, Ineos riding behind, you have to use your men wisely and just use everybody, continue on setting a real strong pace and get as much as you can out of everybody for as long as possible, and then get into the final. If you get into the final 30 or 40 kilometres, okay, and the main peloton is starting to close down, or you're not in a position where your advantage is sure that you can go to the finish, then you have to start going. But he starts going at just crazy times, and I'm sure the riders in the breakaway are not liking him at all, but that's the way he rides. And it's 4 minutes at the moment with Ineos riding here, but I ask myself, Ineos, is it a good situation they're in? I'm afraid it's a complicated one, because when they get so close getting across, there will be other teams who will attack, and maybe that's the point where Carlos Rodriguez can latch on to the other riders and try and maybe go from a bit further out, and I mean on the penultimate climb. But to close this one down, this is going to really just kill everybody within the team, and Carlos Rodriguez is going to be in a situation where he's just left with the other riders that he wants to take time from. But if they did not ride, allow the breakaway to take 15 minutes, use your team in the end to keep you in a good position, and then you can ride. The stage isn't up for grabs, but you can do your job in the GC standings and try and move up. Is that what Ineos want to do, or do they think they can win the stage here with Carlos Rodriguez in the end? you're going to have a difficult one with, the Rogliches, and you can, Enric Mas, Carapaz, all of those guys. If you go to the finish with them, they have showed that they are better than Carlos Rodriguez in these mountaintop finishes.
Average pace today, being writ large upon your screen. And it just eased back a little bit. Well, it's fireworks again. And right now, Narvaez is engaged in the chase. And there's your average pace in the second hour. But it's very quick once we'd actually dealt with the climb today. It took a long time for the breakaway really to be fully established. But right now, some splits opening up. And it's all kicking off again. Time to bring back Robbie McEwen. Robbie, Ineos Grenadiers have put their shoulder to the grindstone here, and they are really going for it. The gap's now down to 3 minutes and 51. We've seen an attrition rate within Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. Vlasov seems to be suffering. Danny Martinez also showing a little bit of fatigue after the efforts yesterday. Is it suddenly all to play for?
I don't know if it's, well, I mean, it's always all to play for. We've seen so many things happen that, the old expression we use so often is, if you're going to win the race, you've got to get through the race. As Jay Vine comes back to the front once again to rejoin Marc Soler and Clement Berthet on the Category 1 climb. But it is really fascinating how it's turning out with guys like Danny Martinez and Alexander Vlasov already going out the back. And we're wondering, is that just in a state of fatigue after what they did yesterday for Primoz Roglic? But how can you be so good yesterday, so bad today? Could it be an illness that's suddenly sweeping through the team for riders of their calibre to be going out the back? One thing I heard just before is when the one of the press motorbikes came past the team car of Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, as now Kasper Asgreen does a big turn on the front for Mikael Landa, so it's all happening. But as that press moto came past the Bora Hansgrohe team car, they wound the windows up and looked straight ahead, didn't give them anything whatsoever. And although the air conditioning would have been cranked to maximum and freezing cold inside the car, it seemed the director sportif was sweating bullets because they are getting themselves in a bit of a situation where Primoz Roglic is without his, trusty right and left hand men, his super domestiques in the mountains. Well, he's got a good lead over those other guys. It can very quickly become treacherous, and a lot of other teams have got cards to play for different reasons all over the place. And Carlos Rodriguez looking like he wants to get himself back into the lead of the white jersey competition for the young riders and make it a hard day for Matthias Scheldemoser. They're leapfrogging positions between third and fourth and fifth and eighth, and all these different things going on, tactical plans. And if you're going to be without teammates when you really need them for Roglic, could become a problem.
Well, you don't need to speak to Roglic about significant advantages in a Grand Tour, Sean, being eaten away. It must gnaw at his consciousness constantly on days such as this. Look at the teams who are massed against him at the moment. This is T-Rex Quick-Step now coming to the front. This is because Mikael Landa wants to go from range. He and everyone else must see the struggles that Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe are going through. And he's thinking to himself, you know what, I could have some of this today. Landa now looks like he's in a comfort zone with his team totally dedicated around him. And if he needs any help, Sean, there's going to be a snap decision to drop back and help him. Indeed, if that scenario opens up. They made mistakes the other day, and right now they want to make amends, I think.
Yes, well, they're making the race difficult, certainly, but what will be the gain for Mikael Landa? I think stage win is something he's thinking about, so he has to try and get out of this peloton of favourites. But the way they're doing it here at this point, with still, just under 90 kilometres to go, it is going to be a difficult one to do that. If you wait for the penultimate climb and Landa puts in a real, big attack, then you would say, well, Roglic is not going to be too concerned about him. Ben O'Connor and Mas and Carapaz, they might look at each other, and then, in the meantime, Landa just pulls a nice advantage and go into a position where he could get a stage win. But there's a lot of work to be done before that. First of all, the breakaway out front has to be caught, but T-Rex Quick-Step are just going to continue on setting this infernal pace now. And this is going to make it difficult, and Primoz Roglic is going to be aware that he's lost some of his main men for this sort of final. But you have to just look around you and watch your GC men and work with the riders you still have got here, and not leave it get to your head too much, because if you start thinking about, oh, I've lost my my two main lieutenants here for the final times of the day, then it just can really upset your head. You just have to be strong, continue on and tell yourself, I'm going to handle this and I can manage this with the teammates I've got here, and I will just mark the riders I have to mark, and I will be able to do that. I did it yesterday. I was much stronger than all of them, and just think positive all the time. And if Roglic do not allow himself to get isolated by some of his main contenders, then he should be in a great position. And if Mas wants to ride with his team, just follow. Leave them do the riding and just follow the men in the GC you need to do.
Go. Vine says, see you, thank you very much. This is doing the old 1-2 here on Clement Berthet.
This is crazy.
It is. Well, they need to roll together. They've got an advantage of 44 seconds over what was the main, is the main body of what was the previous break. So it's 3 up the road. Then we've got Frigo, Monique, Canal, Haig, Champion, Tejada and Castillo. And these guys, he's saying, come on, let's work together. He's having to say this not only to Berthet, but also to Soler, his teammate, Bobby. Going on.
I was poised. I just nearly burst out in full laugh. I thought Soler was just going to crash straight over the top, and not crash in a literal sense, but attack over the top of Berthet. And he was out of the saddle, seemed to be getting wound up, and then saw the signal. Oh, a ride together. Yes, that's what we were doing, riding together. And then in a couple of moments, he'll forget that, and he'll just go off on his own again, and maybe by coincidence put himself in the back of the lead of the KOM competition. But back here, it's a full-on effort for T-Rex Quickstep. Got all that are left and able at the front for Mikel Landa, and wouldn't he love to redeem himself after the last couple of days and have a crack at getting himself back into that top 5 or 6.
Well, if we're looking for redemption as well, I mean, what about Mas? What about Carapaz? I mean, there's a whole load of riders who would love to get something out of today. Ben O'Connor as well. They're looking very, very strong, and I guess more determined and spurred on the more problems that are suffered by those around him. We have this trio. I was going to call them the Three Amigos, but it doesn't seem to be terribly friendly at the moment.
Enemies.
Yeah. A circular firing squad. Should we call them that? I have no idea. It's do you know what? Sometimes when you get service, it's just so lovely. Adam Blythe has just arrived with the coffees.
Well,
bless him.
I would just ask Robbie, what would you do if you're with Soler here and he just starts attacking you, and then when you come back to his wheel, he wants you immediately to start riding. You can see with Berthet here, the discussion is going on. He's just a real killer to be in a break with, because the way he rides erratic.
Goodness
Well,
me.
Sean, if I was with Soler in the break and I was Clement Berthet, I would say ride smooth and regular, or I won't contribute anything to this group. Then you're going to get attacked, of course, but you've got to try and do something to bring him to heel and get him to ride in a way which is conducive to first building a winning gap and then deal with the rest later on. But yeah, it would be irritating to have someone there who's changing the pace all the time, attacking, and he goes. There goes Mark. So we knew it wouldn't be long. That's why I nearly burst out laughing before, because it's like he was reminding himself, no, ride together, ride smooth, attack. That's it, I'm gone, I'm out of here. And off he goes. And now Berthet, I just don't think he has the legs to really cover the moves. And what do you think? Is it a matter of time before Jay Vine tries to make the junction? Because he must be sweating on that mountain jersey now, no?
Yes, well, that's, I think, the battle here between the two men from UAE, but I think Berthet is really confused what's happening here, because normally they would ride together. Berthet, he's not a challenge for the mountain classification, so just bring him with you, get him to do his work, of course, and try and get the maximum out of him and keep your advantage as much as possible. And yeah, this breakaway, it looks so good, 30-40 kilometers back the road. They had a nice advantage, a much bigger one than they have now. They were all contributing very well together. And when you look at what we've got to get over, there's so much terrain where you can really go for the stage win much later into the stage, when there's a much greater possibility of going all the way. But now with 3:30, the peloton working, we can see there more teams coming to the front, and they continue on doing that out in front here. I ask myself all the time, what are the director sportive saying to Max Soler, or have they any control at all? Because the things he's been doing this Vuelta, tactic-wise, just crazy stuff. But the way he's riding, like this man is riding an enormous performance in this Vuelta, the way in breakaways and attacking. The form he's in, it's amazing. But yeah, his tactic-wise, there's a lot of questions to be asked.
Well, Adam, it seems the stronger you are, the more crazy tactics you just get away with.
Well, you do get away with them, that's for sure. But I would be interested to know the discussion, what's going on in the radio between Jay Vine, the director's car, and Marc Soler at the moment.
Well, on that, do you think his first move of the day, Marc Soler, is gets dressed, gets organised, puts all his gear on, steps out of the bus, goes somewhere quiet and turns his radio straight off and says, OK, ready to go?
Yeah, they do the mic check before, don't they? So normally before every stage of any race, the director comes through saying, oh, he's on his radio, he's on it there, so he's obviously kept it in for a little bit. But I was just saying, yeah, they do a mic check.
Just for show.
Yeah, it's true, actually, yeah. They do a little mic check, make sure everything's working. You can imagine after that, he probably just turns it off, just for a little bit. But no, it does seem like it's on. But I'm with Sean, I mean, the directors have a job on their hands with Marc Soler in terms of trying to keep him under control, but when you've got legs and you've got form like this, you can argue against him, but at the same time, like, you are in the Mountains jersey, you do have a right to go for it.
Riding to a fixed plan hasn't really seemed to be the forte of the UAE team, because we've got someone as strong as Tadej Pogacar in your team, like we saw in the Giro and Tour. Then a fixed plan is probably the worst plan when it comes to riders of that calibre. When you've got strength and a Mox, oh gee, I just had to take a breath then seeing those people standing that close to the edge. It made my feet tingle.
Well,
nice scenic shots though.
Yes, Robbie, I think with Tadej, it's easy tactic-wise because you put the riders on the front and you lead them ride and you just control the situation. And if it comes to a point where they're not able to control, there's a rider or a number of riders out the breakaway that you haven't caught. Tadej just rides away at 30-40 kilometres out and closes the gap himself. So, the tactic is not as important when you have a rider of that talent and the way he's performing this year. But if you look at, this out in front here, the two EE guys, they just talk to the rider from Decathlon AG2 or Berthet, and you say, OK, we'll ride together, but we are going to take the mountain classification points. And if you agree to that, then you work together. But the way they're doing it with this distance to finish,
they can't agree to take points.
No, I think that's do you think that's a thing, Adam?
I do think it's a thing, yeah. Otherwise, if they'd agreed that Jay Vine was going to take points, as he has done, Marc Soler wouldn't go on the attack. But it's like Marc Soler has let Jay Vine take the 2 first early points and then gone, there's bigger mountain points up for grabs now with the Category 1, Category 2s. I'm going to try and get those ones instead. There's no agreement.
But you speak with your teammate and you say, OK, the plan is we're going to fight it out for this mountain jersey, but use Berthet in front there and get him to ride. And when you get to the top of the mountain, the two riders from the team, UAE, they sprint it out, get back together again and get working together and continue on and, take as much points as possible, get into the final of the stage and see what the position is. Is stage win a possibility here again for UAE? Try that, but the way that we're riding here, there seems to be no cooperation, no understanding whatsoever.
There's another thing that I don't understand as well, is the way that Vlasov and Danny Martinez were going yesterday, to both of them being out the back door now.
Yes.
Yeah, we've speculated before. I mean, we love a bit of speculation. It doesn't have to be right. It's just, we're trying to put out a number of ideas of possibly why. And Adam, we spoke about the possibility of an overnight illness, or just fatigue from yesterday that's hit them at a bad time. But it would be such a coincidence that both of them go out the back almost simultaneously.
I mean, there's fatigue, but then there's fatigue settling in at pretty much exactly the same spot, and both from going that far back. I mean, fatigue can understand maybe not having it on the last 2 climbs, but this early on, it's questionable. There must be some sort of illness running through the peloton.
Yes, and we see Danny Martinez and Vlasov was riding very early at the stage, and that was a little bit of one. Why are they riding? Because they're the normal ones we see yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, how they were riding on that final climb, and then today they're riding in the earlier part of the stage where, within Bora, it's normally the non-better climbers like a Dents, Adria, those guys, they do the riding on the front in the earlier part of the day, and then the better climbers come into action. The two ones we were expecting to be with Primož Roglic in the end, they were the ones who were doing the grafting, chasing and setting the pace in the front of the peloton in the very early part of the day.
It's a tough one. I mean, the team must have been aware of it. We had reports as well from the mix zone this morning. I'm not sure if you've mentioned this or not, but Rob Hatch being down there telling us that Bora, pretty much all of them just flew through the mix zone this morning where they do the interviews. None of them really stopped, went straight to the start line, didn't want to answer questions. Just the way that, if you look at where Primus is sitting now, a little bit further back, not many teammates around him. Is he all right as well? Is he not all right? We'll find out, but just the way that he's sitting now, he's quite far back down that line.
Well, Primus did say yesterday that they were pushing on to get to dinner. Maybe they had just too much dinner last night and it's not settled well.
Oh, yeah, early celebrations, who knows? But whatever the case may be, I mean, going through the mix zone and avoiding interviews, etc., you'd think after yesterday, by putting themselves in the race lead, taking a fairly commanding position with nearly 2 minutes lead over Ben O'Connor and the others much further back, that there'd be an element of, not relaxation, but confidence within the team, that they would be happy to shoot the breeze, tell the story from yesterday, say how they're looking forward to defending today and that they accomplish their mission, but to race through the mix zone, not talk to anyone. There maybe was something already in the air, that something wasn't right there, that people are suffering. And I agree with what Sean said earlier. The thing is that other teams, they might smell blood in the water. They send their teammates to the front. They try and put the pressure on. But in effect, if all of Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe team were feeling fine, this may be what they would have been doing anyway. So at the moment, things are playing into the hands of Primož Roglic. But if confusion does reign later on, there's still plenty of opportunity with the end of this Cat 1 and then a Cat 2 and 2 more Category 1s and a summit to the finish. If confusion takes over, a man who often makes the best of it on those occasions is Richard Carapaz. And I think he's the man to really light things up. And if there is something to be found out about Primož Roglic and his current state, then I think Carapaz is the man to ask the question and get the answer. Well, there's our situation with just under 84 kilometres to go. Marc Soler, 24 seconds on the two men behind him, and here he is in the polka dot jersey. Jay Vine, his teammate, sitting tight on the wheel of Clement Berthet. The peloton, well, that's stagnated for the moment with T-Rex Quickstep riding on the front. It's still just under 5 kilometres to the top of the climb, so Adam's still enough time for Jay Vine to ride across what is now a 23-second gap to his teammate. How long can he leave it?
What a lonely climb this is as well. Look at it just in front of him. There's no crowds, no nothing, just him and his thoughts. But there is Vine. Oh, how long can he leave it? 2k to go, k and a half to go. I mean, he'd have to make some big old sprint, and he'd really have to make sure Marc Soler sat up probably and waited for him. But would you ever imagine Marc Soler to sit up? No, me neither. Me neither. Can't imagine it. I love it.
That's a negative.
It gives us something to talk about. It's great, isn't it?
Normally the things we talk about, we generally, in the end, come up with a plausible answer. But now, with Marc Soler the last few days, there's been so much, just, the man is an absolute enigma.
He is,
and we struggle to explain what his tactical decisions are, but at the end of the day, he's won himself a stage on Lagos de Covadonga, so it's been mission accomplished.
Well, that's the thing with him, he's done well. He has got that jersey on his back right now, even though he doesn't hold the actual lead. Jay Vine's got that at the moment, but he's obviously got form and he wants something out of this race, doesn't he? He wants that Mountains jersey, obviously, or another stage win.
Well, further back down the road, we don't have a time gap on screen of them at the moment, but three riders who are at 58 seconds behind Marc Soler is Marco Frigo, Pablo Castrillo and Carlos Canal. Jack Haig seems to be drifted further back into a group at 1 minute and 12 from the lead, along with Harold Tejada. In fact, Canal is signalled in both groups. I'd suggest he's with Jack Haig in the third one. Also back there is Thomas Champion and Monique from Lotto Destiny. So this front group has been completely blown apart. So you'd have to think this chase being led by T-Rex Quickstep effectively now is a chase behind Marc Soler and Jay Vine and Bertie, and the rest, maybe Castrillo can ride himself back on terms, but for the rest it looks like their day in the break may have virtually already come to an end.
Yeah, it looks that way, and if it's not already, I think even for Soler, you know, even later on in the race, and Jay Vine and Bertie, that it probably will come to an end the way that these teams are tackling this. And Ineos Grenadiers, they started the riding and they've been taken over by T-Rex Quickstep, which they're probably quite happy about as well. Rodriguez, we know that he's quite consistent, don't we? You know, he's good on the longer mountain days like this. There's quite a lot descending. Remember at the Tour de France a few years ago when he got his stage victory against Jonas and Tadej, that he attacked on the downhill, so he's got that under his belt that he might be able to go on the attack and distance some rivals on the downhill and hope that maybe the other GC teams riders start to look at one another.
Here comes Castrillo and Frigo, so you see them just in the background there. Castrillo, the man in the dark green of Kern Pharma, Marco Frigo, the Italian from Israel Premier Tech, so riding back to the wheels of Jay Vine and Clement Bertie as Marc Soler goes further ahead, now 29 seconds advantage for the Spaniard. And you can see exactly what is left in front of you on this climb, as you mentioned before, Adam, just absolutely barren.
It is, but it must be so. He's like doing a training effort up there for him, for sure. He's just got his numbers, sticking to his numbers, but just that silence for him riding up here now and just being able to see what he's got in front of him. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. Other times when it's like this, you must be like, God, that's a long way. Oh, that's a long way still.
What would be your tactic, Sean? Eyes on the top and just see yourself getting closer, or just do not dare look up?
Well, have just the occasional glance and just focus out in front of you. You know, look at the road, 100 metres, 200 metres out in front, and just keep working on it. And again, just every so often, just have a glance up where the road is going. But you'll be well aware of how far you've got to go. Your team car as well will be giving you information. So you just get on with the job and keep your focus and. Yeah, think of what needs to be done here and
Not let Jay Van catch me.
I don't know what Soler's thinking. Soler's thinking that is the difficult one to what to think.
Well, this is exactly what Jay Vine needs. If anybody, from what we've seen so far in this Vuelta, can close the gap to Marc Soler, it's Pablo Castrillo. He's ridden Marco Frigo out of the wheel. Clement Bertie, he's doing everything to try and close onto the wheel, being held at 10 metres at the moment. But Castrillo with a big effort now to distance a couple, and Jay Vine is now able to just slot into that role of, well, I've got a teammate in the front, so you tow me up there.
It's interesting to see if Vine will go over the top of him and try and go solo across to Marc Soler. Because that's the only way. He can't just keep relying on the other riders, can he? He needs to try and break free himself, I'd say, if he's got the legs to do so.
Oh, well, but he managed to ride himself back into the wheels, so Jay Vine drops himself into third position, and Castrillo seems now to be suffering from the effort of that attack. And Bertie seemed to be saying to the others, just go on my left-hand side as I drop back towards the cars, which seemed to be taken as an invitation to attack him on the left-hand side by Pablo Castrillo.
In the meantime, though, some crowds have come towards the top of the climb for Marc Soler. 2 kilometres remaining for him. You can still see pretty much all the road ahead of him. Gaps come
That's
down
some
ever so
brave
slightly.
parking too, isn't it?
Very brave parking, yeah. Catch me up there, Robbie.
Well, you got to hand it to the people who've got themselves up here today, and we saw that shot before, and I hope we get it again of those people standing right up near the peak towards the edge. I hope they get down safely. 31 seconds for Marc Soler over the chasers. And just 2 kilometres from the top, and 10 points awaiting for the first man to the top of the climb. Jay Vine, at the moment, holding a 6-point lead over Marc Soler in the King of the Mountains competition. That could be
This
narrowed.
might be the master plan, Robbie. Master plan was send Marc Soler out in front to get the mountains points, let Jay Vine take a back seat, and then go for the stage win. So he gets to just sit in the wheels here all day long, gets that last climb, Jay Vine can do his own thing, and then win the stage. Sean's next to me, just giggling.
Shaking his head. Well, until Soler forgets that tactic. Oh yeah, I forgot I was supposed to let you go back past me. As Harold Tejada is soaked up by what's left of the peloton.
Guys,
There is no tactic.
I'm already struggling with the Soler Jay Vine tactic, but Adam, don't do that to me, because this is just junior stuff, the way they're racing here. And you know, we see there Castrillo, that's the one they wanted to get rid of. They got rid of him, the two UAE riders with the man from Decathlon, and they just, you know, could not get themselves organised and just continue on the climb here, share the pace setting, take the maximum points at the top, and then decide what they want to do, if they want to continue on and go for it. But in the meantime, you know, they're really just can't understand what they're trying to do here, because the advantage they had to the peloton, you would say, well, you know, the teams that are riding, they might not continue on to ride and try and just, you know, get organised some way. They've already broke the breakaway to pieces here on the climb. They're scattered all over this mountain, and it's going on.
Back in the peloton, as it was, still T-Rex, Quick-Step setting the pace on the front. And we have about 45 riders left here in the front. And apart from the surprises of Danny Martinez and Alexander Vlasov going out the back, none of the GC contenders and the top 10 are in trouble at the moment. So everybody able to keep their powder dry and anticipate this last part of the race. Once they get over the top of this Category 1, the Portillo de Lunada, we have the Portillo de Sia, a Category 2 climb before a very long descent down to the valley floor before they tackle the last 2 Category 1 climbs. So a double punch as they come towards the finishes. Well, Jack Haig, it's like he's put the cue in the rack since that front group split. Marc Soler and Jay Vine took off. He chased for a while, but has now been completely distanced and is picked up by the peloton. So a valiant effort by the Australian, who has been third in the past overall in the Vuelta back in 2021, but today is not going to be his day.
One set on this. One longish downhill into a Category 2, and then they have a long old while before they really descend down into the final 2 climbs. And so another 8Ks of climbing to come after this before they descend for a good 20-25 minutes. And then it's into those final 2 climbs today. Peloton at 3 minutes 30 still, with a roaring T-Rex behind them. I wonder what the plan will be for Landa. Stage win, moving back up on GC.
A stage win would make a lot good. Landa in this Vuelta, a horrid day a couple of days ago. We absolutely put it on a day that shouldn't have presented any problems for a guy riding within the top 5 on GC. Yesterday was better than the day before, but yeah, certainly now sitting where he is, 9th overall. If he has an exceptional final and go on the attack on the second last climb, pick up a couple of minutes, he could ride himself back into 5th, 6th, maybe 7th. But I think a stage win will do much more than moving from 9th back towards the top 5 for him. So, yeah, and it'd be a fantastic bounce back by Lunda. We'll have to wait and see as Marc Soler reaches the top of the Portier de Lunada and takes the top points. 10 points in the bag for the wearer of the King of the Mountains competition. And now we'll just see if Jay Vine is able to take 2nd points over the top, which I think, Sean, I think you've got the points table in front of you or not, should keep him, if he can, in the lead of that competition, with a 6-point lead going in.
Yes, well, it's for a force category 10, 6 and 4, so yes, Jay Vine should hold on to the lead of that classification. Then he takes it comfortably, as we see here, and now it's going to be an interesting one. Will Marc Soler continue on with Vine here with a group of riders? 3:33 still, like, they're defending very well out in front, and that tells how well, as we can see, Danny Martinez abandoned. So that is something we were questioning at the earlier part of the day.
It's got to be sickness.
Yes, yes, this has to be sickness, and we see him getting dropped so early in the day. Considering the way they were riding yesterday, he was one of the main men that just set Primoz Roglic off and setting that pace into the climb. None of the other big favourites were able to follow, and at one point we had 3 Bora Hansgrohe riders just riding away from all the other favourites, and yeah, we were questioning that already in the earlier part of the stage, and I think we're seeing the answers to some of our questions.
Yeah, well, maybe, hopefully, post-stage we'll get some of those answers from Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. But yeah, although we don't like to assume things without knowing, we do it anyway, but we don't like it. You'd have to safely assume that it's illness, that for a guy like Danny Martinez in a situation like this with the race leader of the team to abandon at this point. As Marc Soler, he does push on, but the time gap has dropped from just over 30 seconds now to just under. And from what we've seen on the descents throughout this race, it's not Marc Soler's forte going downhill, and it's a real opportunity then for those in pursuit to really narrow the gap, or in fact ride back into the wheel of Marc Soler, possibly before they start the next Category 2 climb, or at least getting within range.
Yeah, I was going to say, getting within range. I think, this descent not being the longest one in the world, just over 10 kilometres, and then they go up for the next line, 8 kilometres long pretty much, and then we've got the long descent. So Marc Soler, I'm sure, would like to be solo over the top of this next climb to make sure he's got that gap still. But as you said, Robbie, some people are quick at going downhill, super quick, and some are a little bit nervous. And when you're on your own, you haven't got that rider to follow in front of you to guide you through the lines and show you the speed. It does affect you if you're not the fastest descender in the world as well.
And that's the thing too, we're comparing a rider like Marc Soler going downhill to the very best in the business. It doesn't mean he's a bad descender, but there are just some in this peloton who are incredibly good at it, and some that are slightly more skilled or less risk averse on the descents, and they're just taking time back on Marc Soler every few metres. The clock ticking down to a disadvantage. Just 23 seconds between him and the chasing group, where his teammate Jay Vine is happily sitting on the back of the others who are pushing it on the descent and over the top for the peloton. Around 3.5 minutes, still the gap for this T-Rex Quickstep-led peloton. So across that entire Category 1 climb, the gap between break and bunch has stayed the same. What do you make of that, Adam? A whole team trying to push the pace on the front, but really not narrowing the gap on that Category 1 climb.
I think that, the way Marc Soler has gone up there, he's obviously gone up it very quickly, hasn't he? He's gone up it well, and the chasers behind him, including Vine, they've gone up there well as well. So I think for the peloton, just that strong pace that they've had to ride up here. No one's attacking from that group, and I think with T-Rex riding as they are, it's probably put a few people off attacking. I think if it was a lot smaller group, we might have seen some action on it, but I just can't see riders waiting until this final climb to really try something with the terrain they've got in front of them, the hills that they've got in front of them, still the mountains. Surely someone will want to be a little bit more aggressive, especially the likes of Landa, the likes of Rodriguez with Ineos riding earlier on as well. The longer they ride like this, the better it is for Primus. So if you can isolate him earlier on now without his two best climbers next to him, Vlasov and Martinez. Martinez manned him, Vlasov well out the back now. It would give the chances of the likes of O'Connor to use his teams, the likes of Movistar to be able to play a little bit, the likes of Carapaz to go on the attack. So you'd think that these teams would want to try and take even a slight advantage of that situation.
Well, here is that chase group with Marco Frigo from Israel Premier Tech, Clément Berthet, Decathlon Azur Desert, Pablo Castrillo from Kern Pharma, and Jay Vine, the second UAE rider, up here at the front of the race, and they're chasing down Marc Soler, and they've got the gap now. They've halved it since the top of the climb from 30 seconds back to 15, and it looks very much like they're going to be hot on Soler's heels as they start the Category 2 climb of the Portillo de la Silla, a 7.2 kilometre climb at an average gradient of 5.8%.